It's time for Twit This Week in Tech. Wow, do we have a panel for you. Brianna Wu, Christina Warren, Sam Abdul-Samid is here, and we are going to talk about everything from self-driving cars, net neutrality, why share is the problem, Black Friday, Cyber Monday, the Mac root bug. I could go on and on. In fact, I am going to go on and on because Twit is next.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for This Week in Tech is provided by CacheFly at CacheFly.com. This is Twit This Week in Tech, episode 643, recorded Sunday, December 3rd, 2017. Ambient Tech. This Week in Tech is brought to you by Casper, a sleep brand that continues to revolutionize its line of products to create an exceptionally comfortable sleep experience, one night at a time. Get $50 towards any mattress purchase by visiting casper.com/twit and using the promo code TWIT at checkout. And by Stamps.com. Start using your time more effectively with Stamps.com. Use Stamps.com to buy and print real U.S. postage the instant you need it, right from your desk. To get our special offer, go to Stamps.com, click on the microphone, and enter TWIT. And by Jamf Now, Apple management software for Mac, iPad, and iPhone devices. Visit Jamf, JAMF.com/twit to create your free Jamf Now account and manage your first 3 devices free. And by IT Pro TV. A good IT Pro is always learning, and IT Pro TV is the resource to keep you and your IT team's skills up to date. Visit itpro.tv/twit and use the code TWIT30 to get a free 7-day trial and 30% off a monthly membership for the lifetime of your active subscription. It's time for Twit This Week in Tech Holiday Edition. I guess once December happened, we had to decorate the studio if you're not watching on video. Just imagine me wreathed in garlands with glitter in my hair. No, glitter's bad. No glitter in my hair. Tinsel in my toes. We're going to have a fun Twit today. In fact, frankly, I'm just going to sit back and let these guys take over because Rocket West from the Rocket Podcast, Christina Warren, film girl, is here, senior cloud developer advocate at Microsoft. Hi, Christina.
Hello. Hi, Leo. Thanks for having me.
Always
and since
good.
it is the holiday season, I'm wearing, because this is proof that Facebook advertising actually works on some people, i.e. me. This is the most Brie
Don't
can
tell me.
can
Wait a
attest this
minute.
later.
Don't tell me. Pull down the lower third so I could see. It looks like
Yeah.
some sort of emo band.
Yep.
I don't know. Who is that?
It says the OC, Merry Christmasa.
Oh, it's a TV show. I see.
Yes, that's been off the air for a decade.
Wow.
But there was a Facebook thing last year about it, and I was like, I
Nope,
have to have
I
this.
fall
and
for
Brie can
those
attest,
too.
This is the most.
Yep.
This is the most Christina shirt ever. But it was the holidays, and I was like, I have to wear this on Twit.
I fall for that every time. Those ads just get me. And she also has a movie poster from Clueless behind her, beautifully framed.
I do.
Yeah.
Yes.
So she's living in the 90s, baby.
Always. Forever teen.
Also with us from Rocket, Brianna Wu, co-founder of Giant Space Cat, candidate for Congress in the Massachusetts 4th. Is it 4th? I always forget the number.
It's the 8th
Eighth.
district.
Twice
So
as good
if you
as
go
the
down
4th.
to
If you want to
South
vote, if you want to
Station-
vote for Brianna in the 4th district as well,
Vote in every district. Did they
I don't
count
think
from
it
the
works like that, but I'll take over it there if I have to. We can do that.
Brianna Wu 2018.com. And since we're doing Rocket, Simone is not with us, but playing the role of Simone de Rochefort in today's episode, Sam Abdul-Samid, who is of course, our car guy, senior analyst at Navigant Research, but also our expert on all things automotive. It's great to see you, Sam. And he has his own podcast called, I always forget,
Wheel Bearings.
Wheel Bearings.
At wheelbearings.media.
It's all about cars. And Sam's here because tomorrow in the wine country, Nissan is going to demonstrate their new Leaf electric vehicle, the 2018 Leaf, which comes up for sale next month.
Yep.
And actually, it was really great. Sam got Nissan to bring one down. We did a segment for Saturday's new Screensavers, took a ride in it and everything. Pretty impressed. I'm excited, and we've talked to Brianna before about electric vehicles. Brianna is aggressively, she's an ICE person. Internal combustion engine all the way. Just bought a Porsche Cayman.
I did. Yeah, when they put out a good electric vehicle, I will be the first to buy one. They have a lot of great dynamics. They accelerate quicker. It's just, the Tesla, it's a 4-door car, and I'm just not that into coupe vehicles, you know?
I understand. We're going to call Sam Simone, if you don't mind, for the show today.
Be my guest. I've been called much worse. I would be honored to be called that. Don't expect me to do her voiceovers.
No, she's good, man.
She's amazing.
If I could hire Simone to do my ads, I would just sit back and listen. Sit back and listen. Should we start big or should we start small? I can't decide. Cyber Monday was last Monday, the biggest Cyber Monday ever. The biggest shopping day ever, even besting Amazon Prime, at least for online. Amazon said the Prime Day back in July, which had set the previous record, was surpassed by Cyber Monday. I don't see any numbers on this article.
Which was interesting. Yeah, Amazon didn't release any numbers. This is just completely anecdotal. I can only speak for myself. But I didn't buy much either Black Friday or Cyber Monday. I did get a bed and a new mattress on Cyber Monday.
I hope it was a Casper. That's all I can say. Don't say. If it's not, you better not say. Don't say.
I'm not going to comment.
Even Simone can't overcome that. Just,
I understand, so I'm not commenting. But I did get a new bed and a new mattress. But I didn't really buy anything else, and I didn't see some of the spectacular deals. But maybe I just wasn't looking. Maybe I already have everything. What about you? Did you guys?
Well, I think one of the reasons Amazon did so well is because they so drastically discounted the Echo devices.
Oh, yeah.
And that was the number one seller. It always is. That's one of the things that's really shaping up this holiday season is a battle between Amazon and the Echo and Google and its Home. And unfortunately, Apple is not in the battle. It wanted to be, but the HomePod is delayed till next year.
No.
And I actually have an Echo Dot that I was gifted about a year ago. And when I got it, I took it out of the box, plugged it in, played with it for about 10 minutes, and then stuck it in the drawer, and it's never been plugged in since because I found that I actually have no use for these devices.
You just didn't give it more time, and I think what happens is you've come up with uses over a period of time.
I actually don't mind getting up to hit a light switch to turn off the light switch.
You're insane. You're crazy.
What can I say? What I do use voice controls on my phone. I've got a Pixel XL, and ever since I had my first Moto X several years ago, I've used Hello Moto or OK Google.
So you're used to talking to your phone.
Yeah, I talk to my phone all the time. To set reminders for myself, set timers and things like that.
I miss the Moto X had one feature that I don't know why these other guys don't do it. You could set the trigger word to anything you want. I made mine.
Yeah, that is
Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi, because that way it wouldn't be triggered by anything. I could easily remember it, and plus it gave me a kind of thrill every time I said it. Why can't we do that with these better, more modern devices? Why do we have to choose from their limited supply of trigger words?
They should be capable of doing that, and I'd like to have something besides.
I know, I hate it, and it's a problem for us because we can't talk about. We can't use the
trigger everyone.
Madam A word. We can't use the S word. We can't use any of the words.
And for all of the people watching, if I just triggered your devices, I'm
sorry.
I got to make sure because I know how many times I've been annoyed over the years when I've been in my car and Ron Richards would say,
"It's you did it again."
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
it's a pretty bad habit. And then
just having
my
everybody's
phone would
devices
go
off.
into that mode.
Did y'all see, as you were driving around, did you see many people out actually buying things this year? Because,
Yes.
Lisa was talking about this. In the mall nearest to my current house, there were people out there shopping, but it wasn't as packed as it usually is. And I'm wondering if we're getting to a tipping point where more people are saying, you know what, I don't need to go to the mall. I don't need to go into meat space. Let's actually just get all this stuff on Amazon because the deals are so consistently good every year.
I'll go a step farther. I think not only are people buying more online to the point where we are probably very close to 50-50 if it's not tipped. What's really interesting to me, and you saw this in Singles Day in China, and you see it to some degree here on Black Friday and Cyber Monday, not just online, but on mobile. People are shopping on their phones, which is a kind of a... Would you, Christina, would you do that? Would you shop on your phone?
Oh, yeah.
Would you buy a mattress on your phone?
I did.
See?
I bought stuff on my
I did
phone.
through Amazon, but I did. I mean, and other things. I mean, at this point, you go to what device are you on most frequently? For me, I'm most frequently on my phone, so it makes more sense to do that. I will say, I do think I agree with you, Leo. I think that if we're not already at the tipping point, we're probably really close. But I was surprised, and maybe it's just Seattle. But on Black Friday, we were driving to meet a friend downtown. And so we had to go through where the flagship Nordstrom is, and there are a bunch of other stores. And the traffic and the call of people was insane. It took us a really long time to get to the restaurant that we were going to.
Yeah.
And
No, I think that's
on
true.
Thursday, on Thanksgiving, I mean, we happened to go by. And again, it was a Best Buy. So, I mean, it's a different thing. But there were people at 5 o'clock at night lined up around the block. And I don't know what time the store was opening, probably 8 or 9, but people were, I mean, it was going around and around. It was a big shopping district. So I do think that maybe it's just these big events that bring people out, because I do think that by and large, most people are, I personally am like, I won't even go, and I'm not going to wait in line to save an extra $20. I'd rather or go to a store to save it, wait in line, in a store to save $20. I'll just buy it online.
Let me wax.
But I do think that pardon me?
Let me wax philosophical.
Sure.
Is it so? Until very recently, if you had a man-made artifact, it was a special thing. People might have one book, or probably no books. Books were for rich people. Everybody slept in the same bed because beds were so expensive. You might have one pot. You might have a candlestick. It's only recently we now have any one of us.
20th century phenomenon.
Any one of us has more artifacts, man-made things, person-made things in our lives than a whole country might have had 200 years ago.
Yeah, it's a post-industrial revolution phenomenon. The ability to mass manufacture goods, in high quantities with relatively high levels of quality at very low cost. Has enabled everybody to have, or enabled most people to have almost anything they want.
Does that improve the standard of living or not? Is that a better thing than, I have my little rag doll with the paint on face. That's a special object.
It's changed it. I don't know that it's certainly improved things in a lot of ways. I mean, you have, for the most part, you have far fewer people starving than you would have in the early 19th century.
That's true.
Century.
Life expectancies doubled.
But there are a lot of downsides to it as well. As we are increasingly seeing, especially now, with the influence of social media on our own well-being, our mental well-being. I know my wife, for example, the stress that she feels when looking at Facebook now and seeing, the reports of what's going on, in politics, it raises her blood pressure. And I know it does.
Yeah, it's very stressful, this world we live in.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Brianna.
I was just going to say, I think that I do think that things are more commoditized. Like, we're talking like a Tesla. That's never going to be as rare a thing as, like I'm looking at buying a Porsche 930. This is a really classic one from the 80s and 90s. You're not going to have that in the same way. So I do think, it's like Marco Arment on our network. He really got into old style physical watches because it was the exact opposite of an Apple Watch, like something meticulously made by hand. So I know for me, part of the reason why I really enjoy, like painting my own car is because it's such an opposite experience of the world we live in, where everything is so commoditized, something you really make and maintain yourself. It's almost magical in 2017 because we don't ever get to do it.
There's also the issue of crap. So a lot of we've gotten to the point where this is such an engine that has such a motive force that every company, Apple's a good example, but every company needs to make more stuff. And if a company doesn't have ideas for the next thing that's new and innovative, they just recombine. So I just got this, and it's actually not a new product. This is a mouse. It's called a Skype mouse. It has built into it a speaker and a microphone and a little DAC. So you plug it into the USB port. Suddenly the sound starts coming. It sounds tinny, but it comes out of the mouse. and I can make phone calls into my mouse. That's an example of crap. Was what I mean by crap is there's nothing innovative in this. It's like recombinant DNA. They just took 3 different parts, threw them together, and said, let's see what happens with this. And I feel like a lot of what we're looking at in the marketplace is that. It's not truly innovative. It's just randomly recombined parts.
Well, earlier this year, my wife and I moved, and our kids are grown and out of the house, and so we took the opportunity to do a huge purge. And I was amazed at how much stuff we ended up throwing away, in the course of doing that move. And after 2 weeks of packing stuff and getting it out of the house, there's still all the closets and everything still seem to be packed with stuff. It was like our house was a giant Tetris puzzle.
Yeah.
With stuff packed into every
It's a good
nook and
feeling,
cranny.
though, when you get rid of it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it was amazing to get rid of all this stuff and get it out of
I don't want to
house.
project, but I do, we recently had fires here, as you know, in Sonoma County, and a lot of people, hundreds, I think 1,500 people lost their homes. And it's pretty terrible.
Awful.
Yeah, it's as
4,500?
bad as, it's the worst. 4,500? Wow. So it's the worst you could even imagine, right? But a surprisingly large number of them seem to be pretty complacent with the whole thing. Like, oh, thank God I got rid of all that crap. As long as you and your pets survived.
Now I don't have to go to Home Depot and get a couple of bags
It was
to
a kind
throw all
of a
this stuff away.
purge. I mean, I'm not speaking for everybody. I know that it's been a devastating thing. But I was kind of noticing that a lot of people were kind of okay with that. I got insurance. And I wonder how many of them will replace one for one all the crap they just got rid of.
I know
think
if it happened to me, I certainly wouldn't replace most of the stuff.
Yeah, I'm not advocating it.
Yeah.
I think something with when I travel so much these days, you really get used to your entire life being like a MacBook and everything that you can fit in the bag. Because
there's some virtue
there
to
are
that,
parts
isn't
of
there?
last
Yeah.
year I was living out of a suitcase like almost a third of the year. Like, Christina, how many shows did I do with you last year when I was on the road?
Yes,
And
so many.
It changes your perception of what you really need. And
Now, you might need a Skype mouse because listen, I'm going to now. Music comes out of it.
Of course.
coming.
So
These Heil microphones really don't do that thing justice. I mean, it sounds so much better in person.
I love it.
Okay, I'm sorry.
no, I agree with you, Bree. When we moved to Seattle, we were in corporate housing for the first 2 months, and so we only had like limited things with us, and all of our stuff was in storage. And my husband and I both kind of discussed, we were like, we didn't really miss that many things. And so, I mean, I got rid of a lot of clothes when we went through that. It's going to be harder to get rid of some other things.
Are you going to do Con Marie? Are you going to ask if stuff sparks?
I was going to say the Marie Kondo stuff.
Yeah.
I've read that book, and I'm a messy person, and I should, but that's just.
I read it too.
It's a good idea in theory. I just know.
And that's all I did. I read you're supposed to look at everything in your life and say, does
read the
this
book and I got
Skype mouse,
exhausted.
does this Skype mouse spark? What is it? Spark joy?
Yeah.
Does it spark joy? And if it does, you keep it. And if it doesn't, you just get rid of it. Actually, it sparks some joy. I confess.
That's the thing. That's where the thing breaks down. Is if you're someone like me who's kind of
Everything
a
sparks
hoarder.
joy.
If you're a hoarder and a collector,
That's good. You're a joyful person. You're having a great time in life. Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, but Christina, don't you feel our life is filled with junk?
Oh, absolutely. But at
You
the
should
same
see
time,
my office. I can't even get into my office because I can't know. Every surface is covered with something.
my office right now, I was embarrassed by, and it's still a mess. And I've had to put stuff in the closet. And I've been in this place for like 4 months.
But I notice you have a recycling bin, so put everything in there.
No. I mean, there's just so much. I mean, look, I want to get rid of a lot of stuff, but there's a lot of stuff. Like on my desk right now, you guys can't see it, but I have the Japanese Super Nintendo Famicom. I have a Twitterific bird from like 2008. I have a 3DS XL. I have 2 computers. I have
I could beat you. I tell you.
Sounds vaguely like my office.
I guarantee
I have an
you.
Amazon Fire controller.
Oh,
that
God.
could come in handy.
Oh,
Christina, you're making bad choices.
you guys, but this is not a bad choice. This is amazing. Look, I have a Game Boy Mini,
I
a
have
Game Boy
that.
Advance SP, a Game Boy Advance SP with old games and also old Game Boy Color games.
When's the last time you
And,
played that?
Probably 2004. Probably Probably.
Those things are worth a
Okay,
lot
I think-
now.
I think
if the
Christina
battery
knows.
pack still works.
We need to do an intervention with Christina.
Without it. Funny.
Can I tell y'all the worst story about
Yes.
being a bad wife? I was so embarrassed about this. So my husband is a pack rat. He just is. He loves to collect stuff, and we have moved 5 times since we've been married. And we are getting ready to move to a nice house in our district where we can hold dinners to bring people over and fundraise.
Oh,
and
yeah.
he left a window open downstairs in our basement. And it rained, and it got all over all of his books.
Oh, no.
Now, we have 2 floors to this house, and downstairs is just nothing but Frank junk. And he had to throw about 80% of it away. And I was so thrilled. I was so secretly happy. I wasn't going to have to move all his books from the 70s again, because I've done it so many times.
I knew my last marriage was over when I found my 20-volume Oxford English Dictionary on the floor in the garage. My wife said, we need to make some space.
Oh,
You
no.
got an Ouya? Has that thing ever
Yes,
worked?
this is an Ouya.
You have an
I don't.
Ouya?
I have an Ouya
Oh.
on my desk. This was literally on my
Oh
desk.
my
Look.
Okay, you
Yeah.
win. You win.
Yeah, I was
She
going to say, I
definitely
just
is
won.
definitely
I just
You
won.
won.
I found this on my desk.
Ouya was an Android device. Actually, the company that made Ouya is now making something new. What are they?
Well, didn't they get bought by Razer?
Yeah, Razer
Yeah.
and Ouya. Oh, that's right. The Razer phone is a combination of the Nextbit Robin and the Ouya teams got together to make a phone. So you could get the phone and get rid of 2 objects on your desk.
So it's
No,
like it's like
she'll just
Kickstarter
add another.
failures combined
Yes,
to
yes. I had the Robin phone. I'm sure I've given that to somebody by now, the Nextbit Robin phone. All right. I don't know why I got so philosophical here. Here we are. We're getting close to the holiday season. People are going to, there's Black Friday, Cyber Monday. People are going to go out and buy a lot more crap. And I don't know. Maybe we could just think of something else to do. I'm just trying to get out of buying presents.
I'm proud of myself this year that the only thing I bought at any point during that week was a couple of extra USB-C phone docks to put around the house that were on sale for like $7 on Amazon.
That's very practical. Would you be
And a
interested
couple
in a
cables.
Skype mouse?
No, not at all. Not even remotely.
But you can make Skype. Did I tell you you can make Skype calls on it?
I've heard that, yes.
Okay.
And I've also heard what it sounds like, so I will take a pass.
All right, let's take a little break.
Can
We're
you
gonna come
record
back.
podcasts on it, though?
You could. You could. You know what? Wouldn't that be so? We spend so much time and energy on a perfect audio chain and the PR40 mics and processing stuff. Wouldn't it be funny if I just did a show on this and it would sound like old time radio? It'd be kind of cool. I'm thinking maybe I should do my next show. I'll do.
Well, the
Skype
next time
mouse.
you do a segment on the Incomparable Radio Theater, record it with
Here
that.
we are, broadcasting from 1935. You know what they didn't have in 1935? They really ought to have had Casper mattresses.
Absolutely.
Life would have been when in The Godfather, when they went to the mattresses, they could have just saved themselves a lot of trouble. Just have a bunch of Caspers sent
Slice
to the
the boxes
hideout.
open and-
Yes, it comes open. It smells great. It's comfy. They would have never gotten off the mattresses. They would have just said, "Hey, forget the gang battle. Let's just all stay here." Casper is an online retailer of premium mattresses for a fraction of the cost, and they are awesome. I actually have the new Casper, the Wave mattress. It features a natural geometry support system and a new top layer. They are expanding their line, yeah. So these guys obsessively engineer their mattresses, make many, many prototypes, try all sorts of things. What they're going for is something everybody wants, a mattress that is, it seems a contradiction in terms, but a mattress that has that you sink into, right? So your hard bits, your hips and stuff sink right into it, but yet is firm so it supports your back. Oh, and by the way, as long as we're doing that, let's make it breathable so it sleeps cool so you never get overheated. Then you're going to have the perfect night's sleep. Well, Casper's done it. They've combined multiple supportive memory foams with different characteristics. So it does, in fact, you sink into it, but it does support you. It sleeps cool. It smells great. You know, it's the first mattress I ever bought that I didn't have to air out for a week before we slept on it. It's just incredible. Soft, comfortable, and you buy it directly from Casper, which means you eliminate the worst part of the mattress equation, which is that middleman, that the mattress store where they mark it up 100%, and they do it because people say, "Oh no, I have to go lie on it in the mattress store to choose my mattress." You cannot choose a mattress lying on it in a mattress store. You can't. You need to lie on it at home, and you need to sleep on it, and you need to sleep on it for many nights. In fact, with Casper, you could sleep on it for 100 nights. And if at any time in the first 100 nights you say, it's not for me, they will come, they will get it, they will return every penny, no cost to you. It is as easy as can be. The mattress come in a great box, compact box, free shipping and returns to the U.S., to Canada, now to the U.K. Take a look at the traditional mattress and the new Casper Wave mattress. And on either, you can save $50 by going to Casper.com/twit. Use our promo code TWIT at checkout. Casper.com/twit. Don't forget the promo code TWIT. Terms and conditions apply. Casper.com/twit. It's so nice.
I love these new modern mattresses.
It really is a revolution. And you know what?
It's amazing how much better you sleep on them.
You know what really is happening? And Casper does this, but I think of like Warby Parker and Harry's and Dollar Shave Club, is that entrepreneurs are smart. They're looking for a situation where the middleman isn't working, where the markups are too high, the experience of the consumer isn't good enough, and they're saying we can fix that with e-commerce. And when it really works, it really, really works. It's awesome. We had a kind of interesting Tuesday, Mac Break Weekly. We're sitting there, and all of a sudden, somebody's tweets.
Oh no!
You can log into a Mac. You can change settings in a Mac just by using the root account with a no password.
Yeah.
Renee Ritchie and Andy Anako and I, and we went, what? And Patrick, our programmer, Patrick Delahanty, tried. He said, that's right, it's true. And then Renee tried it, and I tried it. And we were, what the hell? How could this happen? This is High Sierra, the new Apple Mac OS. First of all, on Macs traditionally, the root account is not active. So they activated it. And then because it had no password, it was weird, though, because the first time it might not work, but the second time it worked, or the third time it worked. So you had to try a few times. I quickly was able to go onto my Mac, give the root account a password, just open terminal and type sudo passwd password root, give it a new password, and that fixed it. But then Apple, Apple pushed out a fix on Thursday, which was, more sophisticated. Then they pushed out an update to High Sierra that broke the fix.
Yep.
What the hell?
Well, what this goes to demonstrate is that it's, no matter how good your intentions are, how hard you try, it's virtually impossible to guarantee absolute security in a complex electronic system. And whether it's, Apple is as good as any company out there doing this stuff. And if they can't get it right, who can? And, just think about, we've seen all these things, the Mirai botnet with IoT devices, and now we're getting into automated and connected cars. The potential for what can go wrong there just explodes exponentially.
So we're screwed.
Pretty much, yeah.
I have to say, it getting broken later, I had a different read on that. I think anyone that's dealt with a development team has checked files in and accidentally overwritten like your coworkers' work, especially something that's done hastily.
They need a better subversion system.
Sure. Version control.
Their version. Should not be able to happen.
I do think this really brings a very serious question forward. Like, I'm not someone, I love Apple. I'm a huge Apple fan. Everything I buy is Apple. But I do think there is some truth. I think there's a kernel of truth in these critiques about Apple not making the Mac as big a priority as they used to. And I think when you have a devastating bug like this that comes forward, something that really seems like, this isn't an edge case, this isn't like a, really sophisticated bug, this is this is a really big oversight. I do think it is reasonable for Mac fans to look at that and go, what's going on here? Is the Mac really the priority it needs to be? We're going to be covering a piece later in the show where it looks at Tim Cook and his legacy so far. And I do think that it's a legit criticism that a company as big as Apple, that they do seem to be struggling with getting out yearly updates for iOS and macOS on time.
I guess that's my question. Is this just, bugs happen, and Apple fixed it quickly, unfixed it. I presume they fixed it again. Should we draw larger conclusions from this, Christina, or is it just that's something that happens?
I think that it's too soon to draw a larger conclusion. I do agree with there's been a lot of conversation because it was in addition to the root issue, which was a massive security flaw, and then kind of its hobbled way of handling things, and then even the root update itself broke file sharing, so you had to use Terminal to re-enable that. If you were using file shares, there were some the iOS 11.2 update that they had to rush out because there was
December
a time
2nd.
issue.
You'd
Yes.
get notifications from third-party apps that would crash your iPhone.
Right.
And by the way, if you had that problem, you had to go in. It wasn't enough just to install iOS 11.2, which came out yesterday. You had to turn off all notifications, which, by the way, is not easy on iOS.
No, it's
There's
not.
no master switch. You got to go through.
You have to go through
hundreds
each
of
individual
apps.
app. Yeah.
Yeah.
And no, I mean, and I think it's fair to say what's happening here, but I think that I don't want to draw massive conclusions from one bad week. I think we have to look at things. I think if we come back in a year and we're able to kind of say, has this been a pattern? Or even right now, if we were to say, what has been the pattern of bug fixes to releases? Then you could maybe say something's rotten to Denmark. But other than that, but I feel odd making some sort of sweeping generalization after a bad week.
And you know what? Some people are gonna say, "Oh, this would never have happened under Steve."
Oh, of course it would have.
But it would have.
Of course it would
all the
have.
time.
And it did.
But to Brianna's point about the reduced attention to the Mac, have we heard? Has anybody looked back, or has anybody still got copies of the beta versions of High Sierra running? Were they able to look back and see if this bug was in the betas that were running all
That's a
summer
good
long?
question.
I mean, how
That's
far
good.
back
Yeah.
does this problem go?
Yeah.
And
From
if it
what I've
went that
read-
long without anyone noticing,
Right.
Yeah, well, and from what I mean, and that's unclear. From what I've read, and I've seen some anecdotal stuff, there was some forum activity in September about it, and it does appear as if this probably did exist in the betas.
Okay.
And that was the part that to me was the scariest, is that this sort of bug existed for so long and wasn't tested.
Yeah, but I mean, it would be very serendipitous if some user just came along and said, "Oh, I wonder if root would work."
Well, someone did in their own user forums before all this happened.
And then nobody did anything about it.
And then, which to me, this is the bigger problem than
Yeah.
even saying does Apple have, is their QA not good enough? Because I think that it's too soon to make that sort of judgment. My bigger concern with all of this is that a lot of people really came after the original person who shared the exploit on Twitter and said, you didn't report this the right way, and how dare you not go through the right channels, X, Y, Z. I think that, and I said this on Rocket, and look, I work for a large software company who we have, big operating system, and I don't speak for them, but we've definitely had our own, fair share of things that go on. I'm aware of that, but I think that you have to acknowledge that, even though responsible disclosure is good, going after the messenger, especially when you are a nearly, you're a $750 billion company, doesn't need its fanboys to attack, somebody who brought a bug out there in the public. That's the first thing. I think the second thing is, and I've talked to a lot of people about this, it's not really always really clear with Apple how you can even report a bug and whether or not they will take it seriously. And I've talked to people who are well known in the community who often don't feel like their radars, which is Apple's term for filing a bug report, are seen and have to make a fuss on Twitter. And then everyone on Twitter will say, well, why didn't you just file a radar? And people are like, well, I do, but nothing happens. And case in point, and look, I understand that most of the times the Apple user forums are not moderated, but if these sorts of things are happening there, I'm a little more concerned with, are the right channels in place if people do find these sorts of bugs and find these sorts of holes? is there a right avenue for them to be able to get the communication across? Are the right people looking at those things? That's to me a bigger problem than maybe trying to ascertain whether or not there's a QA issue or they don't care enough about the Mac. It's more like, how easy is it for people to report bugs, and how confident are we that there are enough people behind the scenes reading those bug reports and testing things out?
Yeah, so the guy who did it is a Turkish developer, Lemi Orhan Eryan. He says, "Dear Apple support," this was on Tuesday, "we noticed a huge security issue at macOS High Sierra. Anyone can log in as root with an empty password after clicking on a login button several times. Are you aware of it, Apple?" This was his way of reporting it. Yeah, I think, if he was a security researcher, you'd expect him to do it in the more traditional method, notifying Apple before letting the public know. On the other hand, it's such a serious flaw. Apple support responded very quickly with, "Send us a private message. Let's figure out what's going on." So it blindsided Apple a little bit. They, to their credit, they fixed it within 2 days and then unfixed it, but that's another matter.
I can't speak for what it's like to work at Apple, but I can say, like, at game studios, people that do community management, community support, that is often the least respected job at a game development studio. It's one of the hardest. It's one of the most critical. So it's easy to imagine Apple kind of overlooking this kind of forum management and not putting the resources into it that they need to. For me, though, this is a bigger question beyond this bug. And Christina, I really agree with you. I don't want to draw bigger conclusions here because there's not enough data there. I think the question is fair. I don't think that you can come to a conclusion yet. But what really worries me about this is the fact that you could telnet in. And for me,
yes.
I do everything right. I have, Wi-Fi that's a dedicated box. I have, two-factor authentication on everything I can. I stick to Macs. Since I announced my candidacy, I don't use Android phones anymore. This bug being out there for somebody like me and many other people, this is the difference in your career, like being destroyed or not destroyed. Like, if every email I ever wrote got out there to the public, that would be disaster for anyone. So
do you use Google's new stronger protection on your Gmail account? First of all, do you use Gmail?
I am forced to use Gmail because it's the only mass market email service that will have two-factor authentication built in. So we do reluctantly do that. And
do you use the new Google Advanced Protection, which is designed specifically for people like you? It's designed for John Podesta because, of course, his Gmail was hacked by the Russians and leaked to WikiLeaks. I didn't even think of this, but yes, as a congressional candidate. In fact, are you worried about... you must feel that you might be under, I guess, once you got to get through the primary.
Sure.
Once you get through the primary, and I have all confidence you'll get the nomination, you're going to have to really, I think the Russians are going to be very involved in 2018.
So I could probably say this on the show. I talk to Chelsea Manning every once in a while, and she is somebody that is actively dealing with these same kinds of threats. I deal with Facebook fake logins every day. I deal with Twitter fake logins every single day. So this is something I really, really, really worry about. It's this is political warfare in 2017.
Yeah, and by the way, it doesn't have to be Russians. It could be. It could
Absolutely.
be anybody.
It could be the NSA.
You've been there before with Gamergate, so you kind of know who some of the adversaries are anyway. This is I have to commend you for your bravery, Brianna, because if it were me, if I were in your shoes, I might just cower in a corner. Seriously, I give up the public life entirely, and you've gone the opposite direction.
Yeah,
there are some weeks like this week. Yeah. There are some weeks like this week. It's it feels a little frustrating sometimes, but that's when you gotta get to work.
Yeah. So there's a larger issue, and Elcomsoft, which is a fairly well-known security company, published a story on Wednesday. It's titled "iOS 11 Horror Story: The Rise and Fall of iOS Security." Now, this is intentional on Apple's part, not a flaw. What Elcomsoft is saying is that, iOS used to be very secure. And we've talked about it a lot on our shows on security. Now Steve Gibson has read the Apple white papers on security and has talked a lot about the Secure Enclave, and the things Apple does that are really impressive. And Elcomsoft essentially says that's all changed. And they use as an example, Apple, traditionally in security, there's a balance between convenience and security. More convenience means less security. Apple has decided to move in the direction of convenience, in particular with the encrypted backups of your iPhone. It used to be that if you did an encrypted backup of your iPhone, not only could you not use that encrypted backup, but you would have to go through iOS in order to change or remove that password for future backups and provide the old password. If you had forgotten that, you'd be stuck. You'd have to factory reset the device and you'd lose everything, which was a good protection against your data being stolen. Apple has backed down on that, and I was not aware of that in iOS 11. While you still can have an encryption password in the backup, if you forget it, you just go into your phone in iOS settings and you reset the settings, which blanks your passcode. You still have to have your iPhone passcode, but basically you can create a new encrypted backup from that point on. I'm sure this is in response to users constantly calling Apple support. I think I've done it a few times myself, saying, we can't remember what our encrypted password backup is. Can you help? But it is now very much easier to do that. And what the upshot of that is, if you set a temporary password, made the backup, then decrypted it with an Elcomsoft tool, they have a tool called PhoneBreaker, or just use Keychain Explorer in their PhoneBreaker you could access the user's passwords, authentication tokens, credit card numbers, everything in that keychain. And while you're at it, you might as well go through their Photos account as well. So what is interesting is happening, and a couple of questions come to mind. A, is Apple backing down a little bit on their traditionally very steep security? And I, for one, have been a constant complainer about, God, I got to enter my password again. It used to be in iOS, you'd enter your password at the drop of a hat. That has, by the way, if you've noticed, you don't do that as much anymore. Or, if I'm really paranoid, is this in response to pressure from federal law enforcement agencies who really have been angry at Apple because the iPhone is so hard for them to get into?
Is what you just described there, have they effectively put a backdoor in there?
It's not a backdoor.
No.
But it means it would be good for law enforcement.
Or a master key, I guess.
It means it's easier to get into the data even if it's encrypted.
I mean, I think it's important to note, and I'm not disputing what Elcomsoft is saying, but I do think it's important to note that a lot of this was an advertisement for their PhoneBreaker software.
Yes.
And
security companies do this.
Well, yes, but I think it's important in this context,
right,
especially to say, like, I've actually used their software. When the iCloud hack happened and the celebrities' photos were taken and spread across the way, and we started asking a lot of questions about iCloud backups, I actually bought their software, used some other tools, and wrote an article for Mashable about how I hacked my own iCloud for $200.
I remember that.
And I used their software to do it. And so part of this, I think, is obviously an advertisement to their software. And I'm not really sure how the encrypted backup stuff has changed, but it's something that even Elcomsoft has bragged about being able to do for years, far predating any of the FBI stuff. And so I feel like, we can ask questions about, how much physical access is required and how good or how bad various forensic software is and what it can do. But I don't feel like we can go far enough to say that Apple is putting in backdoors or is trying to kowtow to government pressure, because the company went out of its way on a big level to fight the government's order for them to get into that San Bernardino phone. And from everyone that I've talked to at Apple, they went out of their way to make iOS 10 and iOS 11 even more secure. So the local backup things, I agree that could be a potential flaw. I think you also have to say how many people actively back up their phones on their computers. And that number is decreasing all the time. And in fact, iTunes is becoming less and less used to even install apps on your phone. They took that feature out of iTunes 12 point whatever. So it's a concern, but I have to kind of my ears prick up a little bit and think, okay, but how much of this is just about promoting,
Good point.
the newest version of Phone Breaker?
Yeah,
But is
I
it
think
also-
that's fair though, Christina. But I think the thing I would say, do you remember President Obama when he spoke at South by Southwest 2 years ago? He made comments there. They're directly related to this. This really struck me when he said it because it scared the mess out of me, to be honest. He said that in response to the Apple San Bernardino case, if Apple did not work with the government to find out a way to give courts access to iPhones when situations like that came up, that he believed Congress would go behind their back and in secret pass laws that would force them to give them access. And that's something they can do. Like you can pass laws like that in secret committee. So I think you can have like an utterly, like I'm right there with you. I think Apple has the best of intentions. They've made their statement known. They have a great track record. That's why I buy their stuff. I do think that, like Leo, what you're saying, I don't believe that's true automatically, but I think it's a reasonable fear to have.
It will happen sometime if it hasn't happened.
On the other hand,
by the way, the perfectly logical explanation would be merely that customers were complaining it was too hard, so we're going to make it a little bit easier. And by the way, the takeaway, and Elcomsoft says this at the end of the article, is because your only protection on your phone is your passcode. Don't do a 6-digit passcode. Use a long, strong passcode because that is the last line of defense, contrary to previous versions of iOS 11.
Is it also potentially another of those signs of maybe neglect of the Mac?
I don't think so. I don't think so. I think and that's why I brought this up in kind of contrast to what we were talking about earlier with the login bug. That was a flaw. That was an error. That was maybe lack of attention. This is a very conscious decision. This is Apple's security experts saying, all right, we've got this balance, convenience, security. We feel like maybe convenience has gone down too much. Maybe we're getting too many calls to support. We're going to make it more convenient. It's going to be less secure. It's something people should be aware of. And you're right. Obviously, every security firm, when they report security flaws, it's an ad for the security firm as much as anything else. So I always take those with a grain of salt. I'm glad, Christina, you brought up Obama's appearance at South by Southwest, because that was the one where he said, you can't take an absolutist view on phone encryption. He says, we've got to stop fetishizing our smartphones. He says, quote, if your bargain is strong encryption, no matter what, that we can and should in fact create black boxes, I think that does not strike the kind of balance that we've lived with for 200 or 300 years. It's fetishizing our phones above every other value. That cannot be the right answer.
But it's not about fetishizing. And
by the way, you've
talked about this before.
Well, everything's in there. It's your brain.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. The phone is an extension of your brain. It's about keeping what we know secure. Whether that be in here or in our phones, you want that. We have a right. The Fifth Amendment, gives us that right to protect that information.
It is a balance, and I think Obama brought up a very good point, which is we expect and want law enforcement to maintain law and order in a civilized society. It's a very difficult challenge if anybody, criminals and us alike, can make completely impenetrable storage. Where does that put law enforcement? But it's a very difficult answer. I don't think I understand why he brought it up. I think he's wrong. But
I do too.
I can understand why law enforcement feels that way, because they also feel they have
but they have a lot of other tools to work with too. I mean,
right.
Things like metadata and
right.
There's plenty of other things, information that they can glean from other sources that help them do their job. Yeah. They don't necessarily need to have access to every single device.
Well, there's a bottom line to this whole conversation, which is it's more and more up to the user to be cautious, to pay attention to security, to do the right thing, maybe have a better, stronger passcode on your phone, and pay attention to security bulletins, because you're who knows, somebody could log in. You don't have Telnet running on your Mac, though, I hope, Brianna.
No, of course not. But,
I
mean, but it's what worries me is like our security researchers, these are great, like Christina is saying, they're trying to sell a product, but I think as far as like a market capitalization, there's not enough security research out there in comparison to what I have to imagine like governments all around the world are spending on trying to hack this stuff.
Right.
I think for us as a nation, we've got to have a really adult conversation of how can we better fund security research? How can we like protect this infrastructure? Because right now, like, I mean, all respect to the ones out there doing it right now, like they're saving the world, but we need a lot more of that. So
well, and absolutely, but I would even go a step farther, and we've got to actively fight companies, and this happens time and time again, who threaten to jail the security researcher who comes up with a flaw.
Yep.
Federal authorities who use the very draconian anti-hacking laws to go after people who are really just trying to make us more secure. The IP, intellectual property protection laws like the DMCA that forbid security researchers from looking at flaws entirely. All of these things have to be fixed. It is, I'm amazed people still are security researchers. There is such a risk to them.
Well, fortunately, from my perspective from the auto industry, it's things have actually changed quite a bit in the last 2 or 3 years. When I first started talking to people in the industry about this back in 2010, 2011, they would stick their heads in the sand. Hacking's not an issue with our telematics systems like OnStar and other systems. But in the last, and as recently as about 3 years ago, you had GM joining John Deere and fighting DMCA exemptions for security research. And now they've, at least the auto industry, I don't know about John Deere, but the auto industry has moved beyond that, and they've really embraced security researchers because as they move forward into this world of automated and connected vehicles, they realize the risks inherent in that, and so they've several companies have now formed bug bounty programs for the first time. Tesla was first, GM and Chrysler have done it now. Others have informal bug bounty programs. And last year, the industry also formed an auto ISAC, an information sharing and analysis center. ISACs are common in a lot of different industry verticals, and for the first time, we now have one in the auto industry that enables the both automakers and suppliers to work together to share information about best practices and some of the threats that are out there and how to fight these threats. So fortunately, at least in the auto industry, we've seen a change of attitude towards security researchers. And now, Charlie Miller and Chris Valasek, who I'm sure you know those names.
Love them. Yep.
Both of those guys are now working for Cruise Automation, which is a subsidiary of General Motors that's developing their automated driving software here in San Francisco.
Yeah. So, there's some stories of some success stories. This month, the Department of Defense, the Pentagon, invited hackers to attack it. And as a result, fixed thousands of bugs. Hacking protected systems, even to reveal weaknesses, is illegal under the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act. The Department of Justice has repeatedly made it clear that it will enforce the law. This is according to Lily Hay Newman writing in Wired. But in the last 18 months, a new Department of Defense project called Hack the Pentagon has offered real glimmers of hope that these prejudices could change. They found thousands of bugs in the DoD's public-facing websites. This was a great success. I also want to, by the way, circle around on the Apple root story because Lemmy Aryan, who tweeted about the root flaw, did write a Medium post, which I had missed, who said, I did not discover this. It was actually discovered at my company, and it had been mentioned. They discovered it in a week earlier and had informed Apple about it, and that it had been on the Apple Developer Forum since November 13th, but Apple either hadn't paid attention, didn't want to publicize it, didn't have a fix. So he said after I was told by my IT guys that I had to get a root password on my Mac to fix this problem, he said, what? And he tweeted it. He tweeted it. But it had been Apple had been apprised of it weeks earlier and apparently decided not to take it seriously, didn't see it. So this is something that really has to be changed. The laws have to be changed, and there has to be a culture of encouraging security researchers to find these flaws, or the bad guys will find them first.
I think it's really important to say if we're talking about changing the laws on this, you don't have to get every single jerk store in Congress to agree with this and pass a law. There is one like committee, and if you have 15 votes on that, you can like append legislation to make sure security researchers have A, B, and C.
Good.
This is a solvable problem with if you get a group of technologically literate people to run and replace the technologically illiterate people in there. They're currently responsible for gutting net neutrality. So this can happen. We just need more technologically literate people to get involved in public service.
Yeah.
So with you, we'll have one.
Yeah, get on that
Least one.
committee if you
Least
can,
one.
Brianna.
Yes, absolutely. I actually worried that the Democrats will block me getting on that committee if I win because, all respect to them, a lot of them take money from these same groups, Verizon and Comcast. So we'll see what happens.
Did you see? Do you have that still on the TriCaster from yesterday, Karsten? The front page of Reddit at one point yesterday. I love how Redditors will get together and do these campaigns. Many Redditors posted, my member of Congress is X. She received this many dollars from the telecommunications industry and voted against net neutrality. And then the entire front page of Twitter for a brief period of time, because they had then campaigns to vote those karma up on all those, was one after another, member of Congress, member of Congress, member of Congress, member of Congress, and the amount of money. And it is amazing how inexpensive it is to buy a member of Congress.
Yep.
Those $24,000 you can have their vote too.
Yeah, congressional votes are cheap.
Yeah.
It's really depressing. Marsha Blackburn from Tennessee, if I remember correctly, her number 2 donor is Verizon, and it was something like $60,000, $70,000, which is not that much in a congressional campaign. It's really sad.
Well, and not to veer off into politics, but one of the stories behind the tax law that was passed in such a strange way a couple of nights, or last night, was it last night?
It's Friday night.
Friday night, was the threat from both sides to Republican members of Congress that they would lose their seat. From the right, people like Steve Bannon saying, if you don't vote for this, the Koch brothers saying, if you don't vote for this, we're gonna oust you. We're gonna get a better candidate, and you're gonna lose in the primaries. And from the left, people saying we don't want this tax bill. Republicans are gonna lose in 2018. I don't know if you're a Republican member of Congress. I don't know what you would do. One would hope you would do the right thing. Do what your conscience dictated, because you're going to get screwed.
One would hope you would at least maybe follow the unheeded advice of Senator McCain and follow regular order and have some hearings under this stuff.
Yeah, even can we read it? Can we read it?
Hand scribbling in amendments on the side of the bill. Yeah. But even he voted for it, so it's meaningless.
Really, the last person on the food chain is the voter. I mean, you've got the lobbyists, and I'm not just talking about the tax bill. Let's talk about net neutrality. The lobbyists pouring money into these election coffers. Other, different groups with money, with different agendas. And the person that's the least important seems to be the voter. I think we can fix that by voting. I would hope.
Yep.
I would hope. Anyway, I didn't mean to get political, but it's just mind-boggling how dysfunctional this has become. Let's take a break, and we will come back. Lots more tech news with the panel of Brianna Wu and Christina Warren from the Rocket Podcast, and Simone Abuelsamid from Senior Analyst with Navigant Research. It's Rocket West, and we are going to continue in just a little bit. Our show today brought to you by Stamps.com. It is that time of year that you do not want to go to the post office because it's amateur hour. You get all the people. You get in line with all the people, and they've got boxes and boxes. They're going to mail stuff all over the country for gifts. That's fine. But if your business involves sending stuff through the mail, you don't have time to do that. You don't have time to go to the post office. You do what we do. You get Stamps.com, and you can do everything you need to do right from your desk. You don't need to go to the post office. You just need Stamps.com. Stamps.com lets you Buy and print real U.S. postage for any letter, any package, any class of mail using your computer and your printer. And then the post office comes, a uniformed member of the federal government comes to your place of business and picks up that mail and sends it. So how do we get involved in Stamps.com? Well, it's simple. Just go to Stamps.com. We've got a really good deal for you. Up in the right-hand corner of the Stamps.com website, there's a radio microphone, old-timey radio microphone. Click that. Use our offer code TWIT, and we're going to get you a $110 bonus offer. Pretty cool stuff. Of course, you get the 4-week free trial of Stamps.com, but you also get $55 worth of postage, coupons for $55 worth of postage you can use in your first few months. You get a USB scale. This is awesome. Plugs into your computer, so you never guess about the postage. You get exactly the right postage, not 1 penny more, not 1 penny less. You also get a activities kit. This is a great deal. Just go to Stamps.com. $110 worth of great stuff. When you click the microphone and enter the offer code TWIT. With Stamps.com, I can't tell you how many packages I still get. Brown paper wrapped in twine with hand-licked stamps. I guess you lick it with your tongue, but the hand's holding the stamp. Hand-licked stamps, usually in excess of the amount needed, because, well, who wants to send anything postage to? But sometimes with fewer stamps than necessary, and I got to pay. That is not a good. I got a PR package last year. There was postage due. And it's like, that is not a good introduction to your clients, to your customers. Just, make it not. You can print a label with your logo on it. You get all the information you need right from the address book. If it's express mail or certified mail, it'll fill in the forms automatically. If you're an Amazon seller, an Etsy seller, eBay seller, you got to get Stamps.com. Make your operation look professional with Stamps.com. And with this deal, 4-week trial, free postage, a digital scale, there's no reason not to. Stamps.com. Click in the upper right-hand corner, click that microphone, use the offer code TWIT for a $110 bonus offer at Stamps.com. Perfect time of year to give it a try. Get it right through the holidays. We did get iOS 11.2, which fixed that crash on December 2nd. Anybody have that happen?
No, I fortunately upgraded right before, I guess it started.
Right.
The one advantage of being on the West Coast now
Yeah,
is
you get it early.
I'm like 3 hours behind.
Oh, yeah. You know what? It's the East Coasters that got screwed on that one. All right.
Yeah, it was people like in the earlier time zones start to get the problem. Then everybody else is like, oh, man, update. So I saw that. I was like, oh, yeah, no, I need to update. Okay.
I saw people in Australia freaking out about it, so I headed it off, too. I was very happy about that. Twitter saved my butt.
No December. And you didn't have
use
to turn
Android,
off.
so I never get updates.
You don't get updates at all. Nothing to worry about.
I have Pixel XL,
Sam's
so I get them when Google push.
Nothing to worry about. Actually, if you're using the new Pixel 2, Google did push out a public beta there in I think the last beta for 8.1. This is wild. They had an extra chip in here that wasn't turned on yet, a camera chip, and with 8.1 it gets turned on, and I guess it has something to do with their HDR plus.
I'll bet you that's not the last time that we're going to see a unit of Alphabet using that technology. And not just in mobile devices or in very much larger
what do you
mobile
think?
Devices.
Like cars? Like Waymo?
Wouldn't be at all surprised.
Waymo beta?
Yep.
Interesting. Imaging is a big part of self-driving.
It absolutely is. Being able to recognize what all your sensors are seeing and detect what they are. Between their machine learning algorithms and chips like this imaging sensor or this imaging chip. I think there's a lot of interesting potential.
Do you think we're benefiting from, that's interesting, that in some ways I think with Google you're a guinea pig, right? When you upload all your photos to Google Photos, it's because they want to train their AI. When we're buying a Pixel 2, you're a guinea pig, but you also simultaneously get the benefit because some of the stuff they're developing for Waymo is in there too.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's an interesting, I never thought about that, yeah.
I think from all the CAPTCHAs I've done, like helping to identify street signs.
Right.
I think at the first generation of Terminators is just hunting street signs. We're all going to be fine.
Isn't that funny?
Street signs, cars,
That's the
Yeah.
new thing.
Yeah.
Storefronts and street signs in the capture. I get a lot of those, right?
Yep.
Same.
Yeah, because they're trying to recognize everything in the street view.
For a
As
while,
part
it was
of the
street
mapping
numbers.
that they're building up.
It was
Yeah.
numbers. Remember that? It was a lot of like funky
Yes.
old numbers painted over 100-time
I'll
numbers.
bet a lot of the captchas that we're seeing from Google now are probably things that they're seeing. Each time they move into a new city with their Waymo test program, the first thing they do is they spend a month or two just driving around, generating high definition maps of everything in that city. And so I'll bet a lot of what we're seeing in there is training the systems that are recognizing everything in those images.
When was Skynet born? In the Terminator
wow.
Isn't it already?
series.
Are we already past that date?
How we already
Yeah,
passed
I
it?
think we did.
Was it
Yeah.
2015 or something, or 2014 or
Okay.
something?
1999.
Oh yeah, so we're way
Skynet's out
past.
there. We just don't know it yet.
What? Skynet.
And you guys, wasn't Google founded in 1998?
Oh no.
Well, when
I
would
mean-
you
98 or
say?
97.
When would you say it's born? At
When
conception,
it becomes self-aware.
at gestation, when it becomes self-aware. That's when
Yeah.
Skynet's born, not when they start working on it.
Well, according to the new tax bill, it's all at conception. I'm not joking.
Oh,
I know you're
Oh,
not
no,
joking.
you're right,
I
you're
know
right.
you're not
Oh.
joking.
I have to tell y'all, like Boston Dynamics, the robots they come out with, they're scarier and scarier, and that's like a
They are.
mile from where I
And-
work. So,
And I think it's even
oh.
scarier when they
Yeah.
try to make them look less scary, like the latest.
Well,
I
yes.
know. Oh,
You're right. It is. It's like they have the dogs. Like, oh look, the lifelike movement. I'm like, what are you talking about? This is the scariest thing I've ever seen.
But we painted it yellow. Why are you still scared? It's a yellow dog. How could you possibly be scared
What could possibly
of
go
a,
wrong?
of a yellow? Oh my God! Here it comes! Here it comes! Don't look at me! Oh, it's looking at me.
God.
It's
horrifying.
terrifying. It is.
Yep.
Don't look it directly in the eyes.
I like the little. It's called Spot Mini, as if that would
that's
reassure
horrible.
you.
as if that helps. It's like, no, I mean, what would help is if you put a head on it, honestly. If you put like a little like robot head on it with blinking lights and made it anthropomorphic, then
Hey, they're
exactly
bringing back
think like an Aibo. Oh, I know. I'm so excited. I want to import one. I just don't want to pay the monthly fee. But
It's-
I want a new Aibo.
It's how expensive is it? Is it?
Oh, so it's
1700, I
ridiculously
think, to
expensive.
start, and then what?
Yeah.
and you have to pay a
$20 a
subscription
month or
fee?
something?
Announced
Yeah.
a new Aibo robot.
Let me
dog
turn off
as
the
well.
audio on this.
Oh wow.
So here's it's cuter than ever before.
I think it's adorable. I love the original Aibo. I had the second generation one because when Sharper Image went out of business, I got it for like a song. But as everyone else's, the batteries died and
Right. So you couldn't do
yeah.
anything with it.
nope.
Where is it? Is it on your desk with the Ouya?
No, it's my parents' house. My parents' basement someplace.
Poor parents.
Oh yeah, no, it's down there with I have 3 Sawtooth Mac G4 Mac towers down there.
I don't know what to do with those great cheese grater towers. They're the best
That's what
thing
I'm saying.
ever.
When
These were before the cheese grater. This was the Sawtooth, so it was like the Bondi Blue one, but it
Oh.
had the opening. It was like the first G4 tower. They were nice. Some of them are better than others. I can't. Those aren't even my fault. Those are Grant's fault. When Grant and I first started dating, he had this habit of. Grant is my husband. He's had this habit of. He was taking Ambien, and he had a prescription.
Oh,
what
this
could
is not
possibly
going to
go
end
wrong?
well. I can tell. This anecdote's going to go to hell.
He would do bizarre online shopping while
And not remember a thing.
not remember it. So stuff would show up. So he got like 3 or 4 of these at these G4 towers off of eBay. And at one point he also, or from somebody like Craigslist, somebody local, he also got like a 20-inch flat panel CRT monitor that weighed like 1 million pounds. So I was like, why did we buy this? We don't have room for this. We don't need this. He got like a Sun Spark box because he'd always wanted one. And that was really weird. And then he found some other thing. I don't even remember what it was, but he thought it was some sort of terminal, some sort of computer terminal that he thought was really cool, that he had no recollection when it came in. And then it turned out it didn't even do what he thought or wanted to do. So when we were moving to New York, we were going through all this stuff, what I was calling all the ambient tech. And I was like, yeah, no.
It's ambient tech.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh.
Oh, my
Christina,
God.
I have to say, you're fooling no one on this show. I know you. You're going to say, I'm not going to buy the
Blame
Aibo.
No,
and
just-
then you're going to buy the IBO, and you're going to pay the monthly fee, and then they're going to come out with the rose gold
Hey,
IBO,
Christina?
and you're going to buy
Yes.
that too.
just get Stephen Hackett's address and have your mom send it all to him. He'll
I
take
was
it.
actually thinking about that.
Yep.
I was actually thinking to send them to
Good call.
Steven because he might appreciate them to go with some of his collection. And you're right, Brie.
wow.
I would I
Yeah.
would totally pay the monthly fee. My issue is
No.
that it's only in Japan for right now, so I'm not going to pay a monthly fee in Japan. Like where I draw the line is getting a Japanese credit card and subscribing to some sort of Japanese mobile service, so
Yeah,
I
she
can
says
try to
that
have
now.
that IBO North America. That's
Just
true.
take an
I do
Ambien and it'll all make sense.
yeah. Just do that.
I think there'd be a great show, This Week in Ambient Tech. Just stuff I bought when I was unconscious.
Oh my gosh.
You know what? You married a good guy. I now approve of your choice. That's an excellent. I always wanted a Spark Box. Why not? They're cheap.
Hey, at least it's not going to get you a speeding ticket.
True. Yes. Right. By the way, quick update on the Google emoji controversy.
Oh God.
I love this.
Google has now fixed the beer emoji. The beer goes all the way to the foam.
Good call.
It oddly did not. And where's the cheese on the hamburger? Where it belongs? On top of the meat. Wait a minute.
Oh,
That's the
good.
old one. There's the new one. There you go. That's Android 8.1 is going to fix that. It's going to turn on the camera chip and put the cheese on top of the meat.
Good.
That's what matters.
People are
I'm-
still
I'm
going to
sorry,
complain
but-
over the lettuce and the tomato placement, but at least the cheese is in the right spot.
Yeah, it still looks a little odd, doesn't it?
You know,
Why
I've
is the
been
lettuce
hearing,
on top of the tomato?
I've been
I
hearing all
agree.
this controversy for the last couple of weeks. It's like, it's an icon. Who cares?
Oh, I care. It doesn't look right. Doesn't that bother you?
No.
Yes.
Maybe I'm OCD. Okay, Christina, you and I are OCD.
No, well, and it's not just that, but as we've discussed on the show many times, Leo, like emoji is its own form of pigeon. It's its own form of communication. So when it doesn't look right, it can alter your message. I don't know. I mean, it's silly, but I'm glad they fixed it.
I feel like I
especially-
learned so much about hamburgers and the proper order, like stuff I would never thought about. Like, okay, if you put the lettuce underneath it, then the tomato juice will not drip down. Like, I feel like this has been very educational.
But I don't
no
see
matter
the little
which
chunks of
way you go.
pepperoni in the burger because that's something you got to do. You got to chop up
Oh,
some
wow. You gotta do
pepperoni,
that.
mix
I
it
have
into
to
the
say-
That
burger.
sounds good. Wow.
I have to
Oh,
say,
yeah.
it's the beer controversy, and somehow that one's even more egregious to me, that the beer didn't go all the way to the top, but yet there were suds at the top. That
That
to
was
me
just
is somehow
weird.
more egregious.
That
To me,
was-
that one is somehow more egregious than the cheese on the bottom. The cheese on the bottom is still horrible, but for whatever reason, like the beer having
That
suds.
was
with it-
kind of odd.
Yeah.
You know, having that air gap. Of course, you know, maybe it was some sort of security thing. Who knows?
maybe it's some sort of magic beer. I don't know, but it's odd.
Do we want to talk? This is actually an interesting story, and I don't know how we're going to quite get into this. Uber, of course, there's endless Uber stories.
Yeah. Which one?
Just say Uber and let you talk about your favorite one. But one I thought was interesting is Uber a few months ago was started encouraging its employees to use auto-destruct messaging apps.
Oh, so bad.
And the judge is upset. The judge is actually
should
pissed
be.
off because that's
It
just
should be.
the question is so Reuters says Uber's use of encrypted messaging may set legal precedents, but I think Reuters is confusing encrypted messaging with
Yes.
self-destruct
Self-destructing.
messaging.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
Both of them are problematic, but at least with encrypted messaging, the message still exists, so you could, in theory,
you could-
demand it be unencrypted.
The key. Yes.
Right.
You could
Yeah, I mean-
you could in theory say that as part of the discovery you have to turn over the key to decrypt these messages. The self-destruct part is what's more damaging, especially in the in conjunction with this case. And obviously, I mean, I think of all of us here, Sam knows the most about this Waymo Uber stuff, I'm sure, and all the stuff it's over, but this is insane.
Well, among other people, Corey Lewandowski was using it.
Anthony Levin.
Anthony, not Corey.
Anthony.
That's
Well,
another
that's what I'm
Lewandowski.
saying.
Corey
Yeah,
Lewandowski's a Trump guy. Anthony Lewandowski was using it. And So they were using something called Wicker, which I'd never heard of. So the issue was that, for instance, and the judge is talking about this. He says, in fact, attorneys that counsel in future cases could be found in malpractice if they are unable to turn over evidence from specialized communication tools like Wicker. For instance, Wiki would have been a way for Lewandowski to communicate with other members of the engineers. They could say, "Hey, Anthony, how did Waymo solve this problem with the trolley car?" Anthony could respond, and that would 30 seconds later, that whole conversation's gone forever. There is a responsibility for companies to preserve this paper trail, especially
when there's litigation going on.
If they're concerned that there's going to be litigation and they're deleting it intentionally.
Yeah, I mean, most big companies have retention policies for email, and anything unless it's relevant to something you're working on now. If it's over a certain age, you're supposed to delete it and get rid of it. But if there's ongoing litigation and it's relevant to that litigation, then you're supposed to retain it. And, this sounds like this. I mean, how long was this? Was 30 seconds that it was?
Well, I don't know. They actually ended up getting a Wicker version that kept it for a year, the business version of Wicker.
Yeah, I mean, depending on when they started using this, it's in. If their use predates, Lewandowski's arrival at Uber, you could, I suppose, make a case for that. I mean, I'm not a lawyer. I mean, that could be part of their retention policy.
Dara Khosrowshahi. Thank you. I can't say your name either, so it's good that you would help me with this one. The new CEO said that he says, true that Wicker, Telegram were often used at Uber when I came in as of September 27th, and I directed my teams not to use such apps when discussing Uber-related business.
So I have a question kind of related to this. Obviously, Wicker and Signal are one thing, and we kind of know what those are, but Slack, which is obviously a much more common tool. I mean, and I think that people kind of raise their eyes, and understandably so, to say, why are you to conduct business, why are you using Wicker or Signal? And like you were saying, Sam, I mean, of course, you could make the argument that if the use predated Lewandowski's hiring and Otto, or was it Otto? What was the name of his company that was acquired?
Otto was.
It was Otto. Yeah, it was an Otto being acquired and becoming part of it. Then maybe you could say, well, this was already kind of common practice. But I think it would still raise eyebrows in any event that to do company business, you're using Wicker, you're using Signal. But let's take Slack as an example, which is a very common business tool. And Slack, even though they have retention policies and that most companies do them, you can also set things within channels, whether they're private or public, to auto-delete after a certain period of time. So after 3 days, after a week, after 24 hours, it'll delete. I don't know, maybe one of you three does. I don't know if what Slack's ultimate retention policies are. Like, are those still kept somewhere on the back end?
It's up to the user.
Yeah.
And in fact, somebody in the chat room is saying you can set Slack to delete direct messages after 24 hours.
Yes, you can. And I say that. What I'm saying is, from a corporate level, is that something that is a log still maintained going to the admin? That I'm not sure about, because Slack is obviously used much more frequently than any of these other tools are. And as someone who worked for a company that was sued and whose Slack and other logs were brought into litigation, I didn't work there at the time, but I'm friends with people who were part of that. I know that can be really painful, but you do kind of wonder if you can delete those things. Does that become a problem within discovery in a legal sense? Because Wicker and Signal are one thing, but more traditional, like more quote unquote legit collaboration tools, I think that the question becomes stickier, right?
Right.
Well, I think it's exactly as this piece suggests, that if, in the process of discovery, you are using these tools to auto-delete it, you are going to not have a presumption of innocence there.
Isn't that interesting? This is federal civil court guidelines enable judges to tell jurors that you can presume information covered up by a litigant and now missing would have been negative.
Yep.
So the presumption is, well, whatever it was bad.
Yeah, I think like when we talk about police departments having body cameras, a lot of the time that footage ends up missing. I think this is sort of a similar problem that when that goes, I think we need to have this presumption, in the legal sense, this legal presumption that something was there. For my husband's profession, he does patent law for a living. They worry about this a lot, data retention, because if you can legally prove that the person that you're suing for patent infringement knowingly infringed on your patent, then it's triple damages at that point. So if you're talking about biotech, that's just a mind-bogglingly huge number. So I think the important thing to really define here is the legal presumption that you have something to hide in this case, because you're never going to be able to go through and say, okay, you can use Slack, you can use Snapchat, you can use this or that tool. I think it's got to be up to each individual company to very carefully keep their records.
And most big companies, their IT departments, well, let me drop the word most there. A lot of big companies, their IT departments, do they take into account things like retention policies. For example, at my company, we use Exchange for email and Skype for Business for our chat, our internal corporate chat. So we're supposed to use these tools, and the IT department has whatever. I'm not sure exactly what their policies are as far as how long they keep it, but they do have those kinds of policies in place, and they don't. We've been specifically told not to use things like Slack for work-related communications
because it'll be preserved.
Well, because they don't have.
After all, can't you just have a voice conversation or a phone call, and none of that's preserved?
That's true.
If you really want to be private, talk in person or talk on the phone.
I think that that's what people often do is
Yes.
they'll walk over and talk to somebody in person instead of writing an email or sending a text message.
Yes, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I've done things that I don't think would ever be I've been in work situations where I don't think our conversation or anything about it would have ever been the subject of a lawsuit, but where we've been texting or IMing or emailing back and forth, and just something like, you want to pick up the phone or you want to walk over to X, because it's just just don't leave a paper trail.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes it's paper trail. Sometimes it's actually just a lot easier to just walk over and you can hash things out a lot more quickly that way. But yeah, I mean that's absolutely a real concern.
Let's take a little break. Having some fun with this panel. Sam is here from Navigant. Sam Abul Samid is an automotive expert. Gave us a ride in the new Nissan Leaf. Really liked that. That was a lot of fun. And actually, we should talk about the state-of-the-art in self-driving vehicles, electric vehicles, all the future of driving. Since you cover that on your podcast, I'd love to spend some time on that. Also, Brianna Wu from Rocket and Giant Space Cat, and candidate for Congress in the Massachusetts 8th. When's the primary?
Oh, it's not set yet. So in February, we have to. So my next step is in February, they will give me a ballot. And then at that point, if I go out and get, I believe it's 2,000 signatures on it, then the Massachusetts Democratic Party will agree to put me on the ballot with Stephen Lynch. So that is my next step, to wait for the Massachusetts Democratic Party to give me that.
Good. Well, we're going to, believe me, talk to you before then, but we're going to stay in touch. We're going to, whatever we can do to mobilize the Massachusetts 8th, the Twit Army in the Massachusetts 8th. There's got to be a few people there.
See, you're joking. I have talked to so many people through being on Twit. It's always great for my campaign.
Good. Yeah. You'll be our first member of Congress that we've elected. That's good. Also with us, Christina Warren, who's the president of everybody's favorite 90s TV shows. I don't know. Senior Cloud Developer Advocate at Microsoft. She's at film_girl on the Twitter. How's the Microsoft thing going? You enjoying yourself? You're on Channel 9 now, right?
I am on Channel 9 now. We're doing a lot of good stuff. And it's been really good so far. It's still really different, kind of getting used to to a new career, but I'm enjoying it. I work with some great people, and
how's Grant
lots
like
of cool
in
stuff
the
happening.
West Coast? Because I know that was
He
one of the
loves it.
stopping points. You really wanted to stay in New York with Grant.
I really wanted to stay in New York, but he really, really likes it out
Oh,
here. And
okay.
he was always, I think, he never loved New York quite the way I did, but he really, really likes it out here. So that's good.
Yeah, we have the same kind of problem. I love New York. I was born there. We were just back there Wednesday and Thursday for my birthday. First time I'd been there since I was a baby on my birthday. I've been there, but not on my
Leah?
birthday. Huh?
It says happy birthday.
Thank you. But Lisa's not a fan of New York. She says, and this puzzles me because I think New York smells great. She says she doesn't like how it smells. Did you ever notice that?
New York is a very alive city. I mean,
I love New York.
It's funny
I do too.
walking around Manhattan.
I get
just
energized.
listening to the sounds. I was there in April for the auto show, and just walking around the city, I can't even fathom what that city would be like if all the cars were replaced by autonomous electric cars. I mean, we just totally changed the character of the city.
Oh yeah, no, without the sound, you're right. I don't even know. I don't even know how that would happen. I was there 2 weeks ago for Microsoft Connect, and I hung out with a bunch of people, and I'm going to be there next weekend for a couple of days because a good friend of mine is getting married. But yeah, you're right, Sam. I don't know how it would be if the noise went away. In fact, one of the weird things when we were in Bellevue for the first 2 months here, there wasn't. It was like being back at the sub. It was so yes.
Start
And
going stir crazy.
I couldn't deal. I couldn't deal. And so one of the reasons we moved to Capitol Hill, which is where I live now in Seattle, is because it is an actual city, and especially
funny.
on the weekends it gets loud. And then, but for me, I was like, oh, finally I can sleep,
Yeah.
because before I was like, what is this? I don't know how to deal without the sounds of the city around.
Well, I have an app for the iPhone that will have background noise for sleeping, and it has not only wind and rain and
Manhattan
wind
streetscape.
chimes. It also has loud street sounds, and so we were using the wind and rain because we stayed crazily. I don't know why on Times Square, so it was very noisy the whole time. I love that. I feel like I'm at home. I have to say though, there's 40,000. The cabbie told us there's 40,000 cabs, 40,000 medallions on the New York City streets, and
Yep.
I don't know, untold numbers of Lyfts and Ubers.
Yep.
Driving in New York, you just take the subway, right? You wouldn't drive somewhere in New York.
I mean, I would take Ubers, Lyfts, cabs, and Subway. I would do a
But just be
combination of all
prepared
of them.
for a long drive.
Oh yeah, no, totally. I mean, and look, but I'll be honest. I mean, I calculated how much money I'd spent on Uber over like between 2011 and I think 2016, and I think it was $24,000. I think.
But that's
So-
cheaper than a car.
Without a doubt, it is. But that's just Uber. I'm not counting,
Oh.
cabs. That was just Uber.
Yikes.
So, but even then, still way cheaper than a car. Because I had this problem, and when I gained a little bit of weight and I lost it all, but I think there were a few things that went into that, and I think part of it was because the subway wasn't that close to my apartment. I would just take an Uber in the morning.
Oh,
Oh,
good.
there we go.
Not
And that
good.
would work, but I would work in the back of the car. See, this is why I can't wait for self-driving cars.
This will make you feel at home.
I love that. Gonna fall asleep
To
now.
work in the back seat of a cab or an Uber.
That's a rainy city street. Yeah.
Rainy City Street.
Yeah.
That still
You
sounds
need
good.
honking horns, for all the cabs.
You need honking horns. Yeah, you need people screaming obscenities.
Yep.
Occasional
Fender benders.
Fire alarms, yeah. Fire engines.
Fire alarm.
Yeah.
But you need the cabbie to just pull over suddenly and you don't know what's happening. He says, I have to go to the bathroom, and you're like, okay. That happened to be my first week in New York. Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, there's a certain ambiance there. But no, I know people, and I have friends who live in Brooklyn who own a car, and I have people, I know friends who like maybe even live in the city and have a car. I would never do it.
No. Well, a garage.
Yeah, I mean, a garage
Costs
in
more than an
Manhattan
apartment.
costs you $1,000 a month.
Yeah.
Oh,
Absolutely.
easily. Or you can cheat it like I did when I first moved to Boston. That's when I got my Honda CBR 600RR motorcycle, because you can park it for
smart.
free, like at we parked it behind my first apartment building. Then, traffic doesn't affect you because you can just drive like for
Stolen
standstill
3 days
traffic. Yeah. You just go between people. It's awesome.
You're one of those lane splitting people, huh?
I am. I have good safety gear.
That so worries me. I just
Even after
worry.
all these years, coming to California and driving here, I still get freaked out when a motorcycle comes
Yeah,
whipping past my
me
shoulder.
too. Wow.
Here in
It's
Seattle,
scarier.
it's bikes. There are bikes everywhere,
Yeah,
and I see and they don't always follow the proper road things sometimes, and so my husband will be driving, and all of a sudden the same thing where you'll be surprised by a motorcycle, but instead you've got a cyclist, and you're like, oh, okay, hold up.
We had a great week this week on Twitter. I skipped out on Tuesday, skipped out early, but thanks to Robert Ballasare and Jason Howell who filled in for me. Here's some of the things I missed. You might have too. Watch.
Previously on Twit.
Right.
Can you see out of this?
You can, yeah.
My ears are too big.
Oh, there you go.
iOS Today.
This year we're going to stay fit during the holidays. This is called the M-Pad, and you stand on it and you can gamify your workout.
The new screensavers.
You do this for fun, but now it's become a business for you.
Yeah, it's really a hobby that's just completely gotten out of control.
Look at this. There's a Schick Hydro Razor. And by the way, thank you for being very patient. You can go to the bathroom now.
Twit. It's time to see Leo in the cat suit.
This is great.
I noticed some.
You can see out of it.
You can see out of it.
Yeah.
This is actually. Can you do an entire show like that, Leo?
Sure.
That's his red versus blue helmet.
I don't think it's coming off.
I wish.
Oh my gosh. Oh yeah, I don't think it's coming off. Well, anyway,
You can check in, but you just can't check out. Our show today brought to you by Jamf. JAMF. If you're a Mac person, you're an Apple person of any kind, you probably know Jamf. If you're in IT, absolutely you know Jamf. Jamf. Problem is, if your business is small, as ours was when you first start out, you have a couple of iPads, a couple of iPhones, a couple of Macs. It's easy to keep track, but as you grow, you buy more equipment for your employees and your staff, and it gets harder to keep track of everything. Plus, there's line of business apps you want to install. There's security. What if they get lost? Figuring out how to secure a lost iPhone or iPad? Well, Jamf Now. That's the solution. Everybody who's running a department with multiple Apple products has got to find out about it. It makes management tasks so much simpler. Deploying Wi-Fi passwords, securing company data, enforcing passcodes. And now that you know really that a 6-digit passcode is not enough, you could say, nope, got to have a longer password on your iPhone. Simple. It's affordable too. You can easily set up devices with exactly the same settings, accounts, and applications. No more passing a sticky note with a Wi-Fi password on it. Remotely configure settings like Wi-Fi passwords and email account information. Protect sensitive information. Lock or wipe a device. Jamf Now allows you to centrally deploy apps, view device details, and of course, get a 360-degree view of your inventory. You don't have to be an IT wizard to use Jamf Now. In fact, it's used by a lot of companies. Instead of having an IT department, you can set up, manage, and protect your Apple devices easily in minutes. Focus on your business, but keep track of your assets. Watch your assets, as they say. Start securing your business today with Jamf Now. This is the new product. Go to jamf.com/twit. Create your free Jamf Now account. Manage your first 3 devices free forever. And if you need more, just add devices up to just $2 a month per device. Very simple. Easy flat rate pricing. Jamf, jamf.com/twit. You got to try the new Jamf Now platform. It's very easy, very fast, very affordable. It's a must for Apples in businesses. Jamf.com/twit. I know a lot of our chat room folks use Jamf and are big fans of Jamf. Does anybody? Okay, so it was my birthday, right? And a week before your birthday, Facebook says, "Okay, what charity do you want to donate to?"
Yes.
Does that bug you?
Yep.
I did it this time.
I know you did. I saw that you did. I didn't give you a cent.
That's fine. But in retrospect, what kind of bothered me about it was that I had relatives who wanted to do stuff, and then Facebook wouldn't let them. There wasn't an easy way for them to donate without giving Facebook their credit card information,
Right.
and they didn't have a PayPal account. And so I was like, oh, well, that kind of sucks. It would have been better if they could have just gone directly to, in my case, the ACLU's website and donated to the ACLU. But yeah.
Just send out an email to everybody you know and say, here's a link to the
In lieu of
ACLU
flowers,
or
send money.
wherever, whatever your organization of choice. Actually, a friend of ours.
That's exactly what bothers me. Sorry, go ahead.
After you, Brianna.
Okay, so I was just gonna say that's what bothers me. It's another ploy for Facebook to get all this data in the name of charity. And as long as we're talking about this, I'm always so frustrated that so many businesses in Boston did the same thing. Like they've outsourced their corporate charity giving to the employees of the companies. If you go to, like a grocery store here, they'll ask you to donate to some Red Sox fund. And, 20 years ago, that would be that corporation that would donate that money to, the Red Sox charity. Instead, they're like outsourcing it for you. And that bothers me. And now to see Facebook using it as another ploy to get Christina's grandparents' data, it's just obnoxious.
But don't you feel a little Scroogey criticizing it? Like, well, this is charity.
Well, you know what?
But that's what Facebook's up to.
Instead of taking the easy way out online, do what a friend of ours does. Her birthday last year, every year for her birthday, instead of having a party and inviting everybody over and everybody sitting around drinking, she picks some place and goes and does some activity. Like this year, for example, we had 20 people went to local women's shelter in Ann Arbor,
nice.
or a battered women's shelter, and we completely redid the laundry room. We cleaned everything up, pulled all the machines out, repainted, patched all the holes in the walls. We spent about 4 hours doing this. So did some productive work activity. And do something analog. Forget, instead of clicking, just clicking on something to send $10 here or $20 there, do something real for a change.
I like it. Work at a soup kitchen.
Yeah,
feed
whatever,
people.
Whatever it might be. Go somewhere where they need some help.
It's good for you too.
And do something. Yeah.
So okay, good. So I don't feel so bad, because I didn't do it, and they get, you feel guilty if you don't do it.
Well, I felt kind of guilty just doing it, and then I was just like, and our corporate giving campaign was a couple weeks before my birthday, and so I gave money through that. But I felt guilty, but at the same time, I figured I'd try it just to see. I was like, yeah, I'll see if I can raise money for the ACLU.
Right.
But
I give them $100 a month just for fun. I like those sustaining ones because then you feel. I think it's good for the charities too because they know they have a kind of a continual stream of income. But I have to be fair, Brianna. Every time when I was a kid, we went to Fenway Park. There's always the little can for the Jimmy Fund. That's a long-standing Boston tradition.
Are you a Red Sox fan?
Hell yeah.
Oh, awesome. I didn't know that about you. That's great.
Well, I grew up in Rhode Island. I grew up in Providence. That was the local team.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Remember the Jimmy Fund? Do they still do that at Fenway?
Yeah,
I think they did. Last time I was there, which was a while ago, they did. Yeah.
Have you ever seen the Pawtucket Red Sox?
Oh, yeah.
They're the minor league team.
Oh, yeah.
That is the best time. I love going out there. That is amazing.
We used to have a team in the area. They were the Crushers because it's a wine country, and they weren't even single A ball. These guys were like carpenters during the day, and then they would come in there. But it was fun. And actually, one of the great Giants batters, Kevin Mitchell, was the coach for a while. Till he threw a chair a little too hard. And he said, maybe you should move on, Kevin. But the fun thing about these minor league teams is the promotions they do in between innings because they are so cheesy. Mm-hmm. They would have one where they'd get a bunch of kids. This is like between the 5th and 6th inning. And they'd put a bat on home base. And they'd make the kid put his forehead on the bat and spin around till he got really dizzy and then see if he could run to first base. That was the entertainment.
Yep.
Hey, I'd rather watch that than most of the Super Bowl halftime show.
Yes, you're right.
Totally.
Great fun. Those were the days, my friends. All right, let's see. What else is going on? Jeff Bezos, sad to say, no longer worth $100 billion. We should now.
Still in the 3 Comma Club, though.
Is he in the 3 Comma Club? Yeah, he's definitely a billionaire. Yeah. Jeez.
That's all that really matters.
Jeez.
Until you get to the 4 Comma Club, as long as you're in 3, you're good.
This is a great Tom McKay writing in Gizmodo, your old stomping grounds.
Yes, I love him. He's such a good writer.
Alas, the brightest stars burn shortest, and this tale of hubris has collided with a tragic end. A Wednesday wipeout saw Bezos plummet from his $100 billion throne. With a single-day loss in Amazon shares of $2.5 billion, our sweet market-destroying angel will simply have to make do with his $97.5 billion for now. Aww. Aw.
Poor Bezos.
Poor guy. Poor guy.
It's okay. Congress will make up the difference with the tax bill.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
What do
was
you think
gonna
his
say.
tax break will be? See, that would drive Trump crazy, though.
I don't think I don't think Bezos pays taxes.
Yeah. No,
I'm
nobody
kidding.
at
I'm
that
sure he
level
does
pays
at this point,
taxes.
but yeah,
if
no,
you're
exactly.
a billionaire and you're paying taxes, you're doing so. You need to hire better advisors.
Leo, can we talk about that Bitcoin story there? Because I have to thank you for that story because Bitcoin hit $10,000
Yep.
for a Bitcoin. And the last time, it was 2 times ago, I was on your show. And, the author of the book about Silk Road, Nick Bilton, rather.
Nick Bilton, yes.
He was on here. And, I read that book. I absolutely loved it. I devoured it. We talked about it on Rocket. And I, on a whim, after I read that book, bought $200 of Bitcoins. And now I have $2,000 thanks to coming on your show.
You're
So
kidding me.
Thank you very much. I am not.
I would sell it quickly.
Do
Yeah.
you think so? Do you think so?
By the way, Nick is now he'll never be on this show again. A superstar. He's
yeah,
ri-
well-
2 movie deals now.
he's got 2. He's writing scripts. He is.
Wow.
Yeah. He's Mr. Hollywood
right there.
now.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And American Kingpin, which was the book he had just published, I think that's optioned. I know the Twitter book is optioned.
Twitter book's an optioned. I'm sure that the Silk Road book is optioned.
I think he's writing
That's
that
really
script.
good.
He's the next Aaron Sorkin. Good for you, Nick.
He's
going
great.
back. So Bitcoin did cross 10,000. Is it still that high? I can't.
And then it crossed 11,000, and then
Wow.
Coinbase and a few other things crashed,
Wow.
and it dropped.
Do you want to hear a sad story? I'll give you a sad story. I
Okay.
have 7 Bitcoin, but I don't remember the password of the wallet.
Oh no!
You want to hear my sad story? I bought Bitcoin when it was $10 a Bitcoin, and then I had to I was forced to liquidate it when it was $800 a Bitcoin, which was still a big profit. I'm not saying it wasn't, but imagine now how much.
How many coins did you have? Do you remember?
Like 12.
Jeez Louise.
Oh my God!
I can top all of that. Steve Gibson, the host of our security show, we were talking about Bitcoin, and he decided to set up a Bitcoin miner. This was some years ago when anybody, it was easy. You didn't have to have
Yes.
a nuclear power plant next to you to do it. And the first night, it drops 50 Bitcoins, which would be worth $500,000 right now. He also can't remember the password to
Oh
his wallet.
no!
Well, and also think about the guy who made the original Bitcoin purchase. He bought the pizza, and I think he paid like 20 Bitcoin or 50 Bitcoin or something.
Oh, yeah, the
'Cause that's- he
multi-million
said how-
dollar pizza.
Yeah, because he said that's how much a pizza would
20,000 he
be
paid for it?
cost.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he paid like 20 Bitcoin or 50 Bitcoin or something. And anyway,
20,000 Bitcoins apparently.
20,000 Bitcoins
20,000 Bitcoins. Oh my gosh.
for a pizza.
For pizza. So that
For
would
2
have been
pizzas?
literally
All right, well, that's different.
for 2 pizzas. Oh my
$10,000
god.
or 10,000 coins.
If it's
a
good
pizza.
pizza.
Oh, that's
I can't even do the math. What's 11,000 times 10,000? I don't even know. That's like billions. So one of the interesting things about Bitcoin is the number of Bitcoin the amount of Bitcoin has just disappeared
Yep.
because of people like me who've lost their wallets or forgotten their wallets, stuff that's been stolen.
Or I was going to say the theft. I mean, we all know Mt. Gox is the most high-profile one, but there have been so many Bitcoin scams over the years. And in fact, that was my original kind of entree into kind of getting interested in Bitcoin was the drama around like the Bitcoin scam artists. If I'm being completely like candid, like that was the most fascinating thing is all the people, even before ICOs became like modern Ponzi schemes, there were Ponzi schemes happening in like Bitcoin funds, like 4 or 5 years ago. And it's, but yeah, you're right. It is really interesting to see how much of it has disappeared because people have either lost it or stuff has disappeared off of different wallets or exchanges have been hacked. I mean, it's there's no telling. It's really interesting.
And among the Bitcoin can presume to be lost forever is the billions of dollars in Bitcoin owned by its creator, Satoshi Nakamoto. Nakamoto's kind of disappeared off the face of the earth. We don't know if it's a person or multiple people, what their real names are, or whether they still have access to those Bitcoins. They've not
Probably
moved
forgot
them
the
in any
password.
way. Maybe they forgot. Ooh, that would be bad. A related story, of course, a CoinHive, which is a website, and there are a number of these that offer JavaScript resources for websites
Oh
that
God, these are so bad.
that want
to mine coin on
mine
your browser?
Bitcoin on your browser using JavaScript. Typically, actually, they're mining, I think, Ethereum.
Yeah, they're usually doing Ethereum.
I can't get in because my
your
thank
blocker.
goodness my blocker is keeping me off of CoinHive.
I think have you set up your Tesla to mine some coin for you?
Could my Tesla mine coin? That would be awesome.
There was
I think I have a
story this
different
week about a
opinion.
guy with a Model S that set up a mining rig.
What?
In the back of his car and plugged into superchargers to use the free power from the superchargers to run his mining rig.
Okay, that's smart using the free power because, I mean, at this point, all the mining is happening in China. So anybody trying to even do anything for anybody there,
and they're mostly next to hydroelectric dams, and I suspect run by quasi-governmental folks.
Oh, probably.
Yeah, who are getting
probably.
free power. Otherwise, it makes no sense. Yeah.
But back in the old days, you'd buy X number of GPUs, and you'd have to figure out how much does my power bill cost, and how much is Bitcoin worth, and is it going to be worth running all this 24/7? Because at one point my husband was looking at getting into mining operations, and I was like, you're never going to do it in quantities where it will matter, and the Chinese are taking over anyway. In retrospect, I mean, maybe I should have encouraged him to spend $600 a month on power to do it, but who knows? Who's to say?
We have a friend, Steve Gibson. I have a friend who lives in Arizona, where power is cheap, and has made kind of made a living mining Bitcoin in his garage with very fancy, advanced ASIC machines and so forth. But I think because of course part of the way that this works, and this is the brilliance of Nakamoto, is as more Bitcoin's generated, it's harder and harder to solve these mathematic problems, and so it requires more hardware, more power, and that's how it's supposed to be.
Right.
By the way, it's not Ethereum, it's Monero. It's another cryptocurrency.
Okay.
It's CoinHive.
I have to say, I have a different opinion than y'all do about this. I think that websites have to find a way to monetize the stuff that they're putting out there. And the current way to do that, like even huge sites like Vox do this. Like they put all these ad trackers, and they basically sell your data to whoever they can give it to and do it with ads. If I had to choose between using my computational power to give them X number of cycles to solve these cryptocurrency problems, I would so much rather do that than have everybody and their mother spying on my browsing habits.
Yeah, but to do before you do that, you definitely want they need to be upfront. They need to be candid about what they're doing.
Definitely.
Just in the days when people were running SETI at home or folding protein folding. At least if you know what you're getting into, that's fine. But I think the problem is these guys are being just as they're doing this behind the scenes without telling you, just like the trackers are.
Right. And what's starting to happen too is that I've noticed this is that people are buying WordPress plugins that have X number of installs, and they're going to the people and they're acquiring them and saying, hey, I'll give you X amount of money. And then they're updating the WordPress plugins to basically include this sort of thing. So people are putting it on their websites and then unknowingly having these Bitcoin, or not Bitcoin, but having these crypto mining operations happening on their sites, and then they don't know why their sites are slow or why people are complaining, and have no clue that they're aiding all of this. So, I mean, I think that there's something to be said if you were making that part of your explicit business model that says, rather than showing ads, we're going to be doing this, and that's something that the user.
Would it be okay if they said it explicitly and you agreed to?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I mean, it would depend on the content of the site. I mean, I don't know if I would agree with it. But I mean, it would depend on the resources it would take, right? Because in some cases, the resources on certain websites are so ridiculous, especially on mobile.
That's kind of it. You're already just displaying. If they had flash ads, your CPU would be
right. And so
anyway.
I mean, so it depends. I mean, on the one hand, you could say, oh well, if they were doing it in moderation, but of course, as we've seen with ads and trackers and all that, no one will do anything in moderation.
Right.
So I don't know. I mean, I still think that what you'll have is there will still be a contingent of people using blockers and whatnot. I will say this, though, and I know this will be really unpopular and I don't really care. I have a problem with browsers like Brave that are, if you want to actively, block ads and you want to make that part of what your browser thing is, do it, whatever. But I have a problem with Brave, who blocks the ads and then has people paying into its ICO and then says, oh, well, you can give money to websites, and as long as they sign up for, as long as they tell us that they've signed up, then we'll give them the money that you choose, to pay on. I'm not a fan of that.
Why
at all.
don't you like that? Because I thought that was a really good idea.
Because I feel like that puts the onus on the site owner to have to then reach through a million hoops and sign up and say, here's my information and now you get payment. I also, if I'm being completely honest, I have a problem with a company who's raising money through an ICO and then their main business model is to deprive revenue from other people.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean what Brave was doing is not that much different from what's Pocket originally, back when they were still Read It Later. I mean, they had a similar kind of business model, and other sites have done similar types of things. As Christina said, you're putting the onus on the site operator to reach out, and go through all these hoops in order to get the money. I prefer something like what Google was doing.
Google
with
Contributor. I like
where
that.
You're just paying an amount of money every month, and basically,
I did that.
And I was doing it.
Why
too,
did
until
Google
they stopped.
stop?
I don't know. I think
Enough people must not have been doing it. Is the only thing I can gather.
probably, yeah.
Or too many people were doing
Yeah, I
it.
mean, I was doing $10 a month for a contributor, and seeing pictures of my dog pop up instead of ads. I'd rather see my dog than most of these ads that pop up anyway.
Yeah. I mean, this is the problem. Is it's not a vacuum. You're operating in a world where people are running ad blockers pretty routinely. So
yes, you are, and so
we're trying to find a way around that.
Right. And that's fine. And like I said, if you want to have an ad blocker, I mean, I have the same issue with some of the like AdBlock Plus, which is, part of an ad consortium and it has people to whitelist. Right. You know what I mean? Exactly. It's like, if you're going to do that. But I have a problem if you're raising money, if you're raising VC funding, and if you're raising an ICO, and the whole impetus of your product is to get rid of trackers, get rid of advertising. And then you're saying, oh, well, even though we're depriving revenue from all these websites, we want our users to be able to give to them, but you have to jump through these hoops to get it. Oh, and you have to have a minimum amount, to get the money out and those things. It rubs me the wrong way.
Well, what's the alternative? I mean, more and more people are using ad blockers effectively.
I mean, I think have it separate. I mean, exactly. But I feel like if the whole point of your browser where you're raising funding and you're you're making money, that's really where it comes to for me is you're making money off of depriving income from other people. Like, you're making that choice and then saying, oh, but we're going to give the money back, but it's going to require every single site owner in the world to sign up and go through all these. Like, it doesn't pay off, and I doubt that the amount of money that they're collecting will ever be anything meaningful for even the biggest websites out there,
I couldn't agree more, Christina. And I think you've really got to set the stakes here. I mean, we saw another round of really devastating journalist layoffs this week.
Yeah.
That has consequences for our society, for how informed we are, and the kind of non-clickbait news that gets made. So these are really serious issues, and I completely agree with what everyone's saying. Like, the informed consent, that is the core issue here. I just think we're going to have to find some alternative model for journalists and media content providers to get paid, because eventually, we're going to know so much about everyone that the value of that to YouTube is going to be less and less and less.
Supreme Court is going to hear a case that began with the armed robbery of a Radio Shack store in Detroit, just a couple weeks before Christmas 2010. In the next 3 months, 8 stores in Michigan and Ohio were robbed at gunpoint. The robbers took bags filled with smartphones. On Wednesday, the Supreme Court will consider whether prosecutors violated the Fourth Amendment, that's the one against unreasonable search and seizure, by collecting data from cell phone companies showing the movements of the man they say organized the robberies. So aside from the guy, obviously, he's a crook. But this case, Carpenter versus United States, is being considered by many, including Jeffrey Rosen, the president of the National Constitution Center, the most important electronic privacy case of the 21st century.
Yep.
Effectively, it comes down to, should the police be able to access the GPS on your phone? And the way they do it, by the way, is not through your phone. They contact your cell phone company and say, and I think all the cell phone companies have portals for law enforcement where they charge a small amount, and law enforcement can say, well, where was Leo Laporte on November 28th? Apple, Facebook, and Google, I'm reading from the New York Times article by Adam Liptak. Apple, Google, and Facebook have filed amicus briefs urging the Supreme Court to bring Fourth Amendment law into the modern era. No constitutional doctrine should presume that consumers assume the risk of warrantless government surveillance just because they use these technologies. The court will decide by June. The issue, I guess, is the Fourth Amendment is an 18th century solution. This goes back to our conversation about encryption.
And tracking, too.
And tracking.
Mm-hmm, and tracking.
Yeah. Can I say, Leah, like, this is the most important story that we're talking about this week. I think everyone listening or watching a show would agree we want to get bad guys. Like, we want law enforcement people that go and get a warrant to be able to go before a judge and get that information when it's prescient to law enforcement, putting bad guys in jail. No one would disagree with that. What this is about is the standards of proof that law enforcement has to bring before a judge to get basically huge reams of information about you. So, this is very similar to the Apple San Bernardino case. That it's a situation where, everybody wants the person to, face legal consequences. But if this decision goes through, the government will have the ability to go forward and present a very, very low burden of proof to a judge and be able to get all of your records.
Is this what's called a pen warrant?
I don't know.
It's so it doesn't. You don't need to go to a judge. You don't need to get a warrant. You need merely to go to the phone company, say, I'm investigating a crime. Mm-hmm. The cell phone companies turned over the defendant Carpenter's cell phone records over 127 days, placing him at 12,898 locations. Prosecutors could tell whether he had slept at home on a given night, whether he attended his usual church on Sunday morning, and in fact used that data to convict him and sentence him to 116 years in prison because that phone was nearby when several of the robberies happened.
And this is only going to this is actually a really important case because this is going to expand dramatically. Going back to my autonomous cars and connected cars thing, this is going to expand dramatically because when you get into autonomous and connected cars, you're not going to be buying those cars. You're going to be either subscribing to them or paying a la carte. They're going to be available through mobility as a service models.
Well, even if I buy it, Elon knows everything I do in my car at all times.
But, in the next couple of years, virtually 100% of new vehicles that are sold are going to be equipped with telematics systems. So you're going to have a cell modem in virtually every new car. And as you get into autonomous, there's going to be monitors inside the vehicle that look at who's in there, who's riding around in there. So, there's going to be way more information than we have even now with just tracking a phone because there's going to be cameras inside the vehicle that can see who's in there so they can know who to bill, who to authenticate. And it's going to, if with the phone, you don't know who's actually carrying that phone unless you have eyes on that individual carrying that phone. But once you hop into an autonomous car to go for a ride across town, they're going to know exactly who's in that car and where you're going.
And we're not saying law enforcement shouldn't have access to this. We're saying they should have to go to a judge and get a warrant.
Exactly.
Which they don't need to right now. It's called a pen register. And it comes from, I didn't know this, but previous Supreme Court decisions like the 1979 Smith versus Maryland, Supreme Court ruled a robbery suspect had no reasonable expectation to privacy extended to the numbers he dialed from his landline phone. The reasoning is, well, you turned that information over to a third party, the phone company, when you dialed the phone. So we can ask the phone company, and you have no reasonable right to privacy there. This is the third party doctrine. And governments and the government and courts have used this to justify seeking data from a cell phone company showing users' movements. So I don't think it's unfair or unreasonable to say, no, this is really a lot of information. You should need a warrant for it.
Right.
We don't know what the Supreme Court will do, however.
Yeah.
No, we don't. And I think it's important, too, to point out, because some people say, oh, well, don't you want to catch the bad guys? And why are you trying to fury what law enforcement is supposed to do? And it's important to remember that like the Miranda, case and many of our big, Fourth Amendment cases, Miranda was not a good person. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't be read your rights. Just because someone is a robber and does something terrible doesn't mean that if the government overstepped, that it's not important to put that in perspective, because the consequences of allowing that to go forward could be much, much worse.
So there is some encouraging, precedent in this. There was a case a couple of years ago, Riley versus California. The court said police must generally have a warrant to search the cell phones of people they arrest. Chief Justice Roberts wrote, modern cell phones are not just another technological convenience. Even the word cell phone is a misnomer. They could just as easily be called cameras, video players, Rolodexes, calendars, tape recorders, libraries, diaries, albums, televisions, maps, or newspapers. So that's good news. There's some understanding there of this kind of higher level of information that a cell phone provides. There's another case, U.S. versus Jones from 2012. I remember talking about this on Security Now. The police attached a GPS tracking device to a suspect's car. They tracked him for 28 days, and the court ruled 9-0 that was problematic under the Fourth Amendment. The majority said the police were not entitled to place the device on private property. 5 justices who did, vote against it, but they, voted in saying it was problematic, but they said their problem was the government's ability to vacuum up troves of private information.
Yeah.
So there is some good news that even both the conservative and the liberal wings of the Supreme Court have had some discomfort with this kind of overreaching collection of information. So cross your fingers. We'll find out in June.
I think that it's really important that we have new laws passed that kind of set these standards, right? Like we've got to look at what privacy is like in, 2017, because so many of the precedents for our law were set back when, the internet was first being invented. When you look at harassment law, this is all based off like the Communication Standards and Decency Act, which was when the internet was just a baby. So we've got to go through and we've got to have people that understand these issues, that can define privacy and can give consumers a wider set of rights. Because right now we're just at the mercy of Facebook and Google and, for the goodwill of a lot of these systems.
Yeah. Somebody in the chat room is pointing it out. Well, you bought a Samsung TV. Samsung knows what you watched. Anybody should have access to that. You gave up the right to privacy. would be another example of the third party doctrine.
It's another click-through agreement, though.
Yeah.
That, nobody actually read.
No. Let's take a break. We'll come back with more. Want to talk cars and this Elon Musk tweet from yesterday. He's talking about putting his Roadster in space. I think he was joking.
Never change, Elon. Never change.
Don't ever change. We'll talk about that in just a second. First, a word from IT Pro TV. Love these guys. They've been with us since practically the beginning of IT Pro TV. In fact, Tim and Don, who founded it, were IT trainers who say, and I believe them, that they went to a presentation I was part of at NAB, and they got the idea, why don't we do what Leo does with Twit, but do it for IT training, for IT professionals, to help people get the certifications they need to get the jobs they want, to help people keep those jobs by getting extra skills and polishing up their existing skills. And now IT Pro TV has completely eclipsed us. They have 5 studios. They make 125 hours of new content every week, thousands of hours of on-demand content covering every area of IT. And you can watch on your computer, on your phone, but you can also watch on your big screen TV, on your Chromecast, on your Roku. There's a great IT Pro TV Roku channel, Fire TV. They have an Apple TV app, iOS and Android apps. This is great for an individual who says, I want to be in IT, but I need those certs. Maybe get that certified ethical hacker cert. I love that. Kali, learn how to use Kali Linux or Linux security techniques or ITIL, ISC squared security certs. Get the CRISC, the CRISC, the CISSP, the CISM, the CISA, the CEH. I love the acronym soup that these certs have. You can learn all the skills you need to prepare for the certs you're interested in at a very low cost. And if you manage an IT team, Harvard did this, Harvard University. They bought IT Pro TV for the whole team so that they could get new skills and polish the skills they had. And with the team solution, you get group pricing, you get access to a supervisor portal that lets you control your team's training schedule, create custom groups, training assignments. You can see individual analytics, group analytics, view logins, viewing time, view downloads, track course completion, everything you need to keep your team on top of things. Now more than ever. The estimate is that there will be 1 million security jobs open this year, 2018, and mostly unfilled. These jobs have been hanging around for a couple of years now because there just aren't enough IT pros out there with these security skills. Get those skills. Get that great job at itpro.tv. Find out how IT Pro TV can offer you or your team the best IT training solution. What do we have for you is a free 7-day trial. Plus, use the offer code TWIT30 at itpro.tv/twit. Plus, if you use that offer code TWIT30, you'll get 30, and you decide to subscribe, you'll get 30% off your subscription as long as you stay active forever. Forever. And if you're going there to find out about the team, you can get a free demo of their supervisor portal. itpro.tv/twit. Please use that URL so they know you heard it here. itpro.tv/twit and use the offer code TWIT30. Free 7-day trial, 30% off for the life of your subscription.
Are they doing anything with automotive cybersecurity yet?
That's a great question. That's got to be a hot topic right now. I wouldn't be surprised. They're really good on this kind of stuff. And yeah, we had a hacker on here. He's chief of security at DEF CON. Works at whatchamacallit. Gosh, now it's escaping me. Anyway, he was on Triangulation. He is the guy who hacked the Tesla. He says it's running Linux. It's running. I can't remember which version of Linux.
There's a lot of Linux in vehicles.
Sure, there is. But yes. I would think more real-time operating systems.
A lot of QNX.
Like QNX.
Most vehicles are running QNX, especially for their infotainment systems. But there's also a lot of Linux that's being used in the microcontrollers to run the digital instrument clusters that you got. Things like that.
Yeah, when I reboot my big screen, that's a Linux screen. Yeah. So Elon on Friday said he's talking about the payload on his rocket to Mars. The payload will be my Midnight Cherry Tesla Roadster playing Space Oddity. David, on control to Major Tom. Destination Mars orbit will be in deep space for 1 billion years or so if it doesn't blow up on ascent. Elon says that's a joke.
I mean, unless he shoots it off, out of the solar system, it's not going to be in deep space it's not going to be out there for 1 billion years because
around.
It's going to fall. Mars's gravity is going to pull it in.
He did the next day say, "I love the thought of a car drifting apparently endlessly through space, perhaps being discovered by an alien race millions of years in the future." But remember, this is the same guy who says we're living in a simulation. So
yeah, I was going to say he likes to troll us, but I want whatever he's drinking.
Whatever he's having.
Exactly.
The Falcon Heavy rocket. That's the one he wants to. He's also wants to build.
Launch next month. Finally.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. He also wants, if they don't go bankrupt between now and then.
Well, SpaceX is a separate company.
Oh, okay. So. All right. He also wants to build a high-speed underground loop in Chicago. The Boring Company.
Mm-hmm.
This is another tweet.
Focus, Elon. Focus.
Meanwhile, the Gigafactory's got problems with battery production. The Model 3 is kind of dribbling off the assembly line. And what I heard that Tesla's hemorrhaging $1 billion a month.
They burned $1.4 billion in the last quarter. And they're burning, I think about $8 million an hour, something like that.
Wow.
It's crazy.
Wow.
But
they should.
I'm all in on Tesla. I don't care. I already put my deposit down for another one.
I have said this many times. I think Elon is, and I've interviewed him a couple times. I think he's an incredible visionary, and I think what Tesla has done has really inspired the auto industry to move forward because they really have not done much. They were not doing much with lithium-ion batteries until actually Martin Eberhard and Mark Tarpenning, his partner, really got Tesla going, and then they brought in Elon with the funding. But it wasn't until that really started to gain some steam that the rest of the auto industry really started paying attention, and that's when you got cars like the Chevrolet Volt, the first generation Leaf, and now over the next couple of years we're going to see a whole slew of long range, affordable EVs coming to market.
I almost feel like while Elon would never admit that, he wouldn't be completely unhappy if that's what happened. Did he?
Well, he has said that he would be fine with everybody, I mean, he's I don't know that he actually believes that part of it, but he has said that he would be fine if everybody else would just abandon internal combustion and just go all electric. And he said, he'll make his patents available to anybody to use, which is fine. And like I said, I think I admire Elon's vision, and I think he is an incredible visionary. What he's not, though, is a good manager. He's a terrible manager. He's terrible at running the company. And I think he has he has picked up a lot of Steve Jobs' worst traits without the best traits. So he's got the vision, but he doesn't seem to have the self-awareness to realize that he's not the guy to be handling the day-to-day operations. He wants to retain total control of what's going on at the company, and what he needs to do is he needs to bring in his own Steve Cook. He needs to step aside from the CEO role, be chief visionary officer, and get somebody that can actually execute on that vision and make that a reality, and more importantly, make it a profitable reality. Because if you can't turn a profit, then the company's not going to survive, and that vision goes away.
I want to really agree with what you're saying there on 2 points. Like, first, I think you're dead on. Every one of my friends that works for Tesla says exactly that when Elon is focusing on your division, when he's thinking about your problem, like, money is coming, leadership is coming, problems get solved. When you're not, things get lost in limbo forever, which is why we've seen very slow iteration on some of Tesla's features. I think the other thing I would say is a lot of the time when we talk about EV technology, we talk about, I'll respect these like more boring, environmentally friendly cars. And I think what the average consumer doesn't know is just how much EV technology is critical in supercars these days. Like the Acura NSX just came out. It has a combustion engine, and then it also has amazing car, freaking amazing car. But it also has this EV engine built inside of it, which is why I can get to what's the 0 to 60 1.9 is just ridiculous.
Well, no, that's the new Roadster.
That's the Roadster.
Yeah,
but it's the
NSX is about 3 seconds.
Yeah, but it's still.
I ran a quarter mile in an NSX at 11.3 seconds and 122 miles an hour.
Oh,
I mean, it's phenomenal.
Wow. So, yeah, I mean, and you start talking about motorcycles, some of the most exciting things that have happened in motorcycles in a long time are, the same technology. Batteries, because you can go 0 to 60. If you can go that fast in a Tesla, imagine how much faster you can go in something that just has 2 wheels and that little engine. It's really exciting for like the future of motorsport.
Yeah.
So I feel like win or lose, succeed or fail, Tesla jump-started something.
Oh, absolutely.
And if it's going to fail, it fails because GM and everybody and Ford says, oh, and Audi, Volkswagen says, oh, we should be making these, right?
Or because it's hard, to make a mass market car. I mean,
yes, they don't have any experiencing, somebody, I think it's my wife, said, I want a company that knows how to bend steel.
Yeah.
These companies have been making cars for 100 years and know a little bit, I think, about making cars.
I mean,
although
it's an incredibly complex process. It's a ballet of all these thousands of pieces that have to show up at the assembly line at just the right time, at the right position, and have the people there with the right tools to put it all together.
He has solved these logistic issues, though, with the Model S and now with the Model X. He's having problems with the Model 3.
Not from what we've heard of, from the reports we've heard from people who have actually toured the Fremont factory, we hear reports, racks and racks of parts, everywhere. It's like, no, that's not the way you build
it's supposed to be just in time.
Yeah, you don't want huge quantities of inventory sitting there doing nothing. Right. Everything needs to be made and delivered at just the right time and put together in the right sequence, and the right combination, so you don't have 4 different colored seats in the car.
Can we trust GM, though? GM killed the EV one. They killed the electric car. Can we trust them now to make electric cars and not kill them?
Well, now it's their savior.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, like they killed it before because the gas industry and combustion engines was their bread and butter. I mean, things have changed. they also have, I mean, I think it's important to note too that the CEO, the board of directors, the entire company is very different now than it was.
Yeah, it's a very different company today. And, the reasoning behind the end of the EV1, I mean, the EV1 was a unique one-off product at GM, and all the parts in it were completely bespoke. They didn't use any off-the-shelf parts from other vehicles. And, legally, for liability reasons, they had to they had to support that vehicle for an extended period of time. It would have been incredibly costly to do that. And certainly, I think from the way they communicated all of it, they did that very poorly. But if they had done that better and gone directly from that into and already been working on a new EV program, then you never would have had this issue. But unfortunately they did drop the ball there, and because the technology was not commercially viable, and for the same reasons that why Tesla may or may not actually survive. If they had focused too much at that time on EVs, then they would have been in trouble with Wall Street as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right. So I'm still rooting for Elon.
Yeah, well, I think what the thing that's
I can
actually,
root for him. It doesn't mean
the thing that's actually likely
I put
to
my
make
money where my mouth is. After all, right?
The thing that's actually likely to make EVs really commercially viable is actually autonomy, driving automation, because EVs are still more expensive. I mean, the cost has come down, but they are still more expensive. And for the way most average people drive their vehicles, the payback time with the lower operating costs of an EV stretch out so long that they can't wrap their heads around it. But for fleet operations, for autonomous mobility services, now the operating cost is much more important. You got vehicles, instead of them being driven 10 or 15,000 miles a year, they're running 100,000 miles a year, and automated vehicles need the electricity, need the electrical power to drive everything. I was with GM last week, and they showed us their autonomous Bolt that Cruise is working on, and the first prototypes of that were just the autonomous system was drawing 3 to 4 kilowatts of power. So 10 hours of use, that thing's going to draw down half the battery without even moving. Yeah. So I think autonomous mobility can really be the thing that gets many EVs on the road and gets people using them and really starts to get critical mass.
I also think there's another story we didn't get to yet about Samsung, and they finally managed to get a commercial application of graphene in their batteries to make it charge that much more quickly. For a lot of biotech companies around Boston, you can go there and you see they've installed Juice Bar where you can charge your car. I think once graphene and this new battery technology starts making its way into electric vehicles, when you have something that's both super capacitive and super conductive, that means this range problem is obviated because you can fill up an electric vehicle as quickly as you can fill up a combustion engine. So I think those two technologies together are really going to get us on the right track.
There's still the issue though of actually being able to mass produce those graphene batteries.
Yep,
that's
huge.
There's been a lot of very interesting breakthroughs in batteries over the last 10 or 15 years, none of which they've managed to actually figure out ways to mass produce it. And if Samsung can do that, Samsung actually does some very good battery technology. If they can do that with these graphene batteries. Well,
usually you don't think of Samsung and good battery technology.
Well, they do good technology. They don't necessarily do good.
That enormous battery plant that Tesla just assembled in South Australia that they just launched last week or the week before, that's actually using Samsung cells. It's not.
Oh, it's not Panasonic anymore?
No.
Interesting.
Because Panasonic couldn't supply the cells that they needed for that thing. So Samsung, they went to Samsung for the cells for that.
Final story, net neutrality. We haven't said anything about it. I guess we probably should. The good news is we now know who's to blame for all of the agita around Ajit Pai's decision to dump net neutrality. It's Cher's fault.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Twitter's fault. Twitter is Cher's fault.
Twitter.
Alyssa Milano. Yeah.
Well, actually, I think it's actually pretty reasonable to blame Twitter, given their role in promoting certain candidates in the election.
Yeah,
That's not what Ajit Pai is saying, by the way.
He's mad about
if that candidate had not been using Twitter in that way, he might not have gotten elected.
What Pai is saying is that the tech giants are the ones that are a threat to net neutrality, not the ISPs and the carriers.
And he's not angry about Twitter promoting certain candidates. He's angry that the Twitter bans Nazis sometimes. That's what he's angry about. Is that people with who are conservative apparently are treated poorly. That's his argument against Twitter, not the Russian interference.
Now look, I love Twitter, but let's not kid ourselves. When it comes to a free and open internet, Twitter is part of the problem. The company has a viewpoint and uses that viewpoint to discriminate. And unfortunately, Twitter is not an outlier. And by the way, he's speaking to a friendly audience here, because if he were speaking to anybody else, they go, "What the hell are you talking about?" Indeed, despite all the talk and all the fear that broadband providers could decide what internet content consumers can see, recent experience shows it's the edge providers that are deciding what content these see.
Right.
These providers routinely block or discriminate against content they don't like. Here's the fear I have. This is the first shot in the now we know what the position is going to be from people who are really carrying water for Comcast, Verizon, the big companies. Because that's what Comcast and Verizon would like you, the voter, to think is, oh, no, it's not us. We're just nice people bringing you the internet. It's those people at Google and Twitter. They're the problems.
They're the problem. Facebook, it's all their fault. It's not that, Comcast refused, wouldn't let people use BitTorrent in 2007.
It's not that AT&T blocked FaceTime.
Exactly.
That's nothing to do with us. No, this is...
there's no way that Comcast is going to give higher priority to NBC Universal content versus, 21st Century Fox content. Of course
AT&T
not.
would never block Skype.
Comcast would never say, oh, well, as long as you're accessing our apps and our tools, that won't count against your data cap. Oh, wait, they already do that. Even now.
So I think that what this is basically Ajit Pai has now outlined the government's position about all this, that those evil folks at Twitter and people like Cher and Alyssa Milano, the liberal elite, that's what they're saying. It's dog whistles. It's code word. The liberal elite is really the problem in this country, and that the ISPs are all about free speech.
The ISPs are all about free speech, as long as you can pay for it.
Pay for it,
yeah. I'm not going to say anything about net neutrality because this is a family show and I don't want to use the language.
Are you a little upset about that there?
I'm pretty upset about it. But I will say this. I know Al Franken is somebody that hasn't had the best month, but he had, in his last book, he had a chapter that was very, very relevant to this, where he talked about when Comcast went through their last, acquisition. And they went before his committee, and they tried to, they were trying to get basically antitrust permission to move forward. And he talked about how he fought to force clauses in there where Comcast would have to basically give internet access to lower income people. And they went before Congress, they said what they'd have to say, and they completely lied about it. Just didn't follow through at all. So I think you've really got to look at these companies' history when it comes to regulation. Their PR people saying we're going to do A, B, and C. It's not legally binding. There's no reason to believe that. Companies are going to do what is in their best interest.
And of course, interesting article, which was unfortunately titled by Ben Thompson in Stratechery. His original title, Why Ajit Pai is Right, really wasn't, I hope, what he meant to say. What he is saying, I think, and it's as usual with Ben, it's a lot of very erudite writing. But what I think he is saying is maybe Title II regulation. He says, I'm for net neutrality.
He's not for Title II
fostering innovation. I think the net neutrality is the only way the internet can function at scale, and innovation is how we survive the internet-driven transformation that's only just beginning. But, he says, Title II regulation is not the way to do it.
I disagree. I mean, I love Ben, and I think he's incredibly smart. I do disagree with him on that point.
Yeah.
I mean, I think he wrote a compelling and an argument that could sway a lot of people. I personally disagree with it.
I can't disagree with the idea that the government should execute a light touch, and what we really need is competition. The problem is what we don't have is competition.
Well, this is the whole point, is that we don't have competition. We haven't ever had competition, and there's nothing being done to increase that. And in fact, when those things do happen, you see companies, I mean, even in the case of Google Fiber, when they were attempting to come into different places, now obviously Google has backed off of that plan, you would see the behavior on behalf of Comcast and Verizon in those areas, to do everything they could to stymie Google from getting, from even starting there. So I would be with you. Light touch would be great, assuming we had competition, but we don't. And in fact, most people don't even have a choice on who their ISP is. It depends on where you live, and you probably have one choice. If you're lucky, you have two. If you're lucky, you have two.
And I would submit, I don't know why Ben isn't mentioning this, but that what actually Ajit Pai has done is the antithesis of light touch and encouraging competition, because he's banned the states from in any way interfering with net neutrality, and he's allowed to go forward the efforts by ISPs to prohibit public broadband, municipal broadband.
Exactly, I was going to say.
That's where competition could happen, and the FCC and the ISPs are shutting it down.
Yep.
Now, let me say another thing that's going to, and I'll take all the arrows now. I'm not sure that we need to worry about Comcast and Verizon. I know we've seen bad behavior from them in the past, but I think all eyes are upon them, and I think that they are going to, one thing we know for sure, they're going to act in their best financial interest. That's how these companies are constructed. That's what they should do. They're capitalist enterprises. And because I think they would get so much heat if they were to throttle Netflix again, that may not be a real threat at least in the months to come. Do you think?
Maybe not originally, but again, okay, so they get blowback. But what is your choice as a consumer? Okay, so it's because if Comcast is the only person I can get as my ISP, and they decide to throttle Netflix unless I pay them an extra $10 a month, I don't have any recourse. I can't go to another ISP. I still have to do that. And I think that, but I'm with you. I think that optically they might refrain from doing that. Instead, what I think they're probably going to do, and I think in some ways this is more insidious, and we've already seen this happening, with wireless companies, which already weren't being held to the same net neutrality standards as traditional ISPs, is an increase in zero rating. And zero rating on its face can be very good for consumers by saying,
consumers won't complain about that.
Consumers won't complain about it because I'm getting this for free, or I'm getting this more stuff. But that to me is actually more insidious, because it is giving preferential treatment to certain services, and it is giving certain places an advantage and a leg up because of their business relationship or because of something else.
What if we, instead of putting pressure on Ajit Pai to not, by the way, they haven't voted yet, December 14th, not to preserve net neutrality, but instead put strong pressure on the FCC and Congress to foster competition, to make rules, instead of make rules that are anti-competitive, make rules that are pro-competition, that encourage small ISPs. Because if there is an alternative and companies behave badly, consumers will move to the alternative.
Well, in theory, that's great, except that there is no alternative today. I mean,
but that's why they need. Right. That's why the government needs to say.
The Congress we have today isn't going to do anything. No. I mean, it's pretty clear that they don't care what anybody thinks.
Yeah.
At least not the majority of the people. I mean, whether it's net neutrality or competition.
I do think you're dead on, though, Leo. Like, the answer here is we've got to roll back these huge mega mergers. So we have basically two essentially ISPs throughout the whole country. Like, we've got to roll that back. I also think rather than leaving this up for the FCC to, interpret, I think it would be much better if Congress would just pass a bill, ensuring this. I think that's the way to do this.
Well, that's your job, Brianna Wu. When you get into Congress in 2018, you're going to step up there and you're going to say, I think we'll make up a nice acronym for it, but the ACT to foster competition among internet service providers, and we're going to get that bill passed, and it's going to be something everybody can get behind. And that is better than anything. Let's not have government regulation. Let's foster competition. And if true competition were out there, then I wouldn't really be worried.
You know, I'm increasingly, as I see what's been happening over the last several years, you know, I'm more and more inclined to like the idea of setting an expiry date for corporations.
I love that idea.
You know, what? 25 years.
The idea. That's it.
Then
You're
you
done.
liquidate and
Bye,
you move
Google.
on and start over again.
See you later. Because frankly, let's face it, Facebook, Google, Amazon, these companies really they would love to get rid of net neutrality. That is true because they are incumbents. It's the companies in power that will stay in power. It's the little, small, innovative competitors that are going to be disadvantaged if we throw out net neutrality. And so, truthfully, I don't think Google's fighting the fight for net neutrality.
Of course they're not. I mean, because, yeah. I mean,
Yep.
yeah.
So we got to figure out, you know what this all comes down to? We got to get money out of politics. We got to get people who understand technology, understand these issues into Congress. And that means each and every one of us has a job to do over the next 18 months. A big job to do. Job one, if you're in the Massachusetts 8th, let's sign that petition when Brianna comes knocking at your door. Let's get her on the ballot. Let's get her into Congress. Be nice to have some leadership on this. Brianna Wu is co-founder of Giant Space Cat. She's Space Cat Gal on the Twitter. And she, of course, is running for Congress in the Massachusetts 8th. BriannaWu2018.com if you want to find out more. And she and her colleague to her left, Christina Warren, are, along with Simone de Rochefort, are on the Fabulous Rocket podcast, which Sam says he listens to religiously.
Every week.
I'll forgive him.
Wow.
Yay! Thank you, Sam.
You should come on as a host sometime. We'll have you on.
Yeah, we'd love
happy
to
to.
have you.
Relay.fm if you want to know more. Christina is at Microsoft, where you can find her working hard at Channel 9. And she is Senior Cloud Developer Advocate there. And she's still at the Twitter at film_girl. And I didn't ask you, but do you have other podcasts you want to plug, Christina?
No, Rocket's the main one. I also do a show called Overtired, but it hasn't been regularly done
You're
in a
too
while.
tired to do it. I know. I understand.
It's really good, though, with Brett Terpstra. I listen to that one, too.
Yeah.
I love Brett.
On the rare occasions when it comes out, but yeah.
I love that you listen to it. That's amazing. No, we were supposed to record an episode this morning, and I totally bailed. So we're going to record it on Tuesday.
Okay, I think the name is the problem. I'm just saying. You're living up to the name of Overtired.
Yeah, this is true. This is true.
Yep. Maybe you need a new podcast name like Energized. And Sam Abul-Masamid is also a podcaster. His show is
Wheel Bearings at wheelbearings.media.
I don't know why I blanked that out. Wheel Bearings. And it's all about cars.
It's all about cars and transportation and automotive technology and kind of where things are and where it's going in the future.
Oh, it's a must listen to. And of course, Sam works at Navigant, where he's a senior analyst, and covers automotive stories at Forbes and other places. In fact,
Forbes, and I have a column in Automotive Engineering magazine.
Nice.
And
he's going to be on the new Screensavers next week talking about electric cars as we test drive the new Nissan
Leaf,
the new 2018 electric vehicle.
Yep.
That's fun. We did that right before the show. Everybody, thank you so much for being here. I'm betting if you're still listening, you're glad you were here. This was a great conversation, a great panel. We do Twit Sunday afternoons, 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern Time. That's 2300 UTC. If you want to tune in live, you can. See all the stuff that we edit out later. We leave it all in. Why not? How else do you get a 2.5-hour podcast, right? Go to twit.tv/live for the live stream. You can also ask your Echo. You can say, Echo, listen to Twit Live on TuneIn, or watch Twit Live on YouTube. And if you have an Echo show with a screen, you can also do that on the Google Assistant. You can, if you're going to be on the live stream, you do want to go to the chat room and participate there. Great bunch of people. Really help us out. irc.twit.tv. But, of course, we understand you have a busy life. You can't always be here in person. So here's what you do. You get the on-demand version of our shows. All our shows are available in audio and video form at twit.tv and wherever your favorite podcasts live. In fact, subscribe. That way you'll get a copy as soon as it's ready, each and every week, hot and fresh, delivered to your phone. Thanks to Karsten Bondi, our producer, studio engineer John Jammerby Slanina. Thanks to all of you for listening, and we'll see you next time. Another Twit is in the can.